Hello everyone, welcome in, welcome in. Before I change the scene here, let me run us through the songs that we just listened to. So that was Nightmare by Andrew Holschult and Do Not Reanimate by Andrew Holschult as well. They're off of the Nightmare Reaper original soundtrack. Pretty great game overall, although I did get a little bored of it by the end of it and never ended up finishing it, but the soundtrack I would say is even better. Now, with that out of the way, allow me to set things up here, because we're going to start off with something a little different, I suppose. We've not really done this before, this particular thing, so you'll have to excuse me, just briefly. So there we go. So you should be able to see me and also my browser here. And yeah, we're going to talk about some of the WarCom news, because I was preparing for the show earlier, and I kind of figured like we were going to go into some of these topics anyway. And I kind of figured, like, hey, at that point, why not? Why not literally just, do it on the show? Do it live on air, I guess. I'm not going to go through literally every single article, because a lot of them get posted all the time. But we can hit basically yesterday's announcements, and then the stuff that got posted today. So let's get into it. I mean, this is the big one, for me at least. So, every Sunday there's a preview about what's going to be up for grabs next week, what's going to be getting released. Oh, and by the way, let me also get started on this here as well, so we have a little bit of background music going on. But yeah, so every Sunday there's announcements about all sorts of various stuff that is going to be released. And yesterday they actually announced that 2 new battle tomes for AOS are coming. Beasts of Chaos and also Gloomspite Gits. This is the one I'm very, very excited about. Yo, welcome in, Ren, welcome in. We're going to look at the WarCom news real briefly, because there's some good stuff in here. So I figured, before we jump into building more models, we can actually, talk a little bit about this. But yeah, so yesterday's announcement, obviously there's also going to be some stuff from LVO. I mean, you can see that right here. We'll get into that in but a moment. But yeah, Beasts of Chaos. So goats are probably going to get nerfed with their new book, because right now they're really, really strong. Turns out being able to essentially ignore armor saves with every single unit in your army is pretty fucking good. And that might be changing in some way, shape, or form. Either way, I'm glad that they're getting the book, because they've waited long enough. The new Beast Lord Mini is also coming out. Now, I don't know what to think about this guy. He has a good pose. This is a great pose, and look at that silhouette. He looks amazing. The base is really big, which leads me to believe that this model is pretty big. But then you look at the actual detail on some of the fur and stuff, and it's just kind of not there, I don't want to be rude and just complain that it looks awful, because it clearly doesn't, but something just doesn't add up here. Either he's actually smaller than I think, and that's why some of the detail is a bit more muted. It's definitely a different kind of sculpt, but it does get, style points for having such a badass pose, for sure. And then, obviously, the big one, the actual valuable, great announcement that everybody was waiting for, Battletome Gloomspite Gits. It has taken, I want to say, how many years for this to happen? For Gits to just get a new book? It's unbelievable. I can't believe it's happening in my lifetime. They've been such a trash tier army for years now, and I love them for it, but by God, I have been waiting for this. If you don't know, if you've not been, tuning in, or you don't know my personal credentials, I guess I don't, show it off on stream all that much, but I'm a pretty big Gits player. They were the first army that I started collecting back when Warhammer Fantasy was still a thing. Back then they were called Night Goblins, and it was actually kind of a soup battle tome kind of situation, but most armies were like that. So the faction was called Orcs and Goblins, and you'd play Orcs and Goblins in it, kind of straightforward in that regard. But I wanted to play mono-faction Night Goblins, which a lot of people at the time wanted to do, funnily enough, but there was no support for it. You had a ton of options that fit into the Night Goblin style, but this is, way, way before GW started doing, faction and sub-faction rules. You basically had the equivalent of battle traits for most armies, and some special abilities, but it's a vastly different game, so you didn't get any benefits, so to speak, for actually going into Night Goblins purely. In fact, you just lost a ton of options. But, it's whatever. It's totally fine. And they're also, funnily enough, the first army that I ever painted, the full completion, because I had a pretty sizable army, as it turns out, from buying a bunch of starter boxes and all sorts of random junk, but I was never much of a painter until I opened my store, and I think it was in 2016 or 17 that I fully painted, an army that later on would be worth more 2,000, 2,400 points. and I kind of never stopped after. Like, I had like some small breaks, but they're very close to my heart as a consequence. I'm a big Gloomspite Gits fan, and most recently, last year, I went to AOS Worlds with the Troggoth army. Pure Trogs, I think it was, I can't remember the exact list, but I'm pretty sure it was like 4 Trog bosses, and all the other Trogs that I had. Really trash list, absolutely awful list, but it looked great. Like, I had like this really colorful Trog herd. I might like get some pictures of it and try to show it off later. I mean, we can go on my Instagram and then look at it, like I have some pictures there. But either way, what do I want from this book? I don't care what they do power level-wise. I'm okay with you know, Gits sucking, but it would be better if they didn't just completely suck dick. That would be a pretty big improvement, sizable one at that. The thing that they have to fix, absolutely, is just the keyword bingo. Just make it so that buffs are just something you can apply for various units. To not suck so hard, I mean, that would be pretty great. Yeah, that would be pretty great if they didn't suck so bad, but I'm just okay with it as long as, you know, like, we can actually buff certain sub-factions. Look, this is a super battle tome. Do not be fooled by the unified-looking cover art here. It is very, very beautiful. Like, this is a great cover, by the way. But this is multiple armies in one book. This is Orc Warclans, but tinier and with, like, more pointy ears and definitely bigger noses. And that's okay. We're also getting Dr. Doom in Age of Sigmar, apparently, with a squig. I mean, he looks baller. Like, let's be real, that looks actually sick. I have no idea what this man does other than he looks incredible. I would not want to get this thing up my ass, I can tell you that much, but I'm pretty sure if it's up to him and his friend here, then it's gonna go up my butt. And I think that's while he's the boss. Now, this is something I'm not happy about. So we're also getting Snarlfang Riders. Now, these guys have existed in Underworlds. There's been a warband, Ripper's Snarflangs. It's just 3 Wolf Rider dudes. And they looked cool. But even here, they mentioned that these are Gitmob Grots. So, like, one of the things that I will say about Gloomspite in general, so the issue with GSG going up to this point, is you got MoonClan as one faction that kind of sort of almost need their own rules. You got the various Squig Herd stuff, including the Squig Hoppers and Boring Grots, that is definitely its own faction, essentially, in terms of mechanics, in terms of unit sizes, and in terms of number of units, and in terms of playstyle, just in general. I mean, it's an old cavalry army, so it's going to be vastly different than like a horde with some hidden fanatics, basically. You also have Spiderfang, which is for some reason also in Gloomspite, I don't know, but that's another old cavalry army, with potentially Monster Mash sub-playstyles, because now they allow you to run the basic Ragnarok with a war party as battle lines, so you can have, like, probably, I don't know, like 8 or 9 spiders, like giant, massive Ragnarok spiders in your army, which is insane, but this is 3 factions. And then you got the Troggoths, which is, again, it can be its own complete faction. And now we're getting Gitmob, for some reason. Like, part of the problem of the book was that buffs were not playing well with each other, none of these units were really helping one another, and then the solution is clearly... Do note, however, we mentioned 2 separate all cavalry armies already, in the form of Squigs and in the form of the Spiderfang. Both of them are essentially considered light cavalry. I guess if you go Boingrot Bounders all in, then maybe because of armor saves you could make the argument that it's heavy cav, but... At that point, you might not even count it as cavalry because they're so slow. They have none of the benefits of cavalry. I genuinely don't know what the fuck this unit is doing in my Gloomspite Gits book. I don't think GW does either. I think they just want to test the waters and see if people care about Gitmob. So, if I can ask just one thing of you, if you play this game, if you're gonna play Gits, please don't buy a single fucking box of Snarlfang Riders, so GW gets the message that no one gives a shit about goblins that are LARPing as Mongols. We straight up have fat Mongols in the fucking form of Ogre Maw tribes. Can we just drop this concept from Warhammer Fantasy? I know Wolf Riders were a thing, that's an entirely separate article that we'll get into, but why the fuck does this need to exist in the year of our Lord 2023? I'm just asking, like, any askers in chat? It's me, I'm the asker. And obviously there's going to be Vanguard boxes. Now, I don't really care about the Vanguard boxes, because I'm at a point where if I'm going to start any of these armies or rebuild any of the collections, I would just select what I want and buy it. I think the savings on the Vanguard boxes are still good enough to maybe use them. And honestly, for Beast, this looks pretty good. Like, I see some proper Gores in here. I see some Besta Gores, that's pretty good. and some Ungors. Now, I don't know if the Ungors can be built into the Raiders. I think, unfortunately, that might be a separate box. Of course, Ungor Raiders might not be the best unit anymore, but they used to be really good. And I mean, Dragon Ogres, I quite like them. I understand a lot of people think that they're ugly models. They kind of are. But they're kind of fun. Like, I don't know. It's like a little bit of nostalgia for me, I guess. I'm kind of into them. I like the concept anyway. Like, the lore for them is really, really cool, in my opinion. And then you got Bloomspite Gits, the Vanguard box. Now, the value of this box entirely depends on whether or not they have fixed the keyword-related issues. And by that I mean, can like this guy give any proper buffs to anything that isn't just one of these lads? Can he buff, you know, the Squig Hoppers / Boingrots? Can he buff the actual Troggots? Do the Troggots do anything other than hit stuff with a giant, like, you know, Boulder Club here? We don't know. But as far as like a collection of models go, this is great. Like, you get some of the old, you know, Moonclan Grots. They don't look bad. The Loon Boss is fantastic. He's the guy off of the cover art. He looks fucking great. I haven't built mine. I have one from like 3 years ago, but this guy looks absolutely fantastic. The new Trogs are an amazing kit. So many build options. And the Squig Hopper / Boingrot Bounders are actually really dope as well. I'm curious about the unit size on these guys, because you get them in boxes of 10, but both units actually start at 5. Currently with the old book, so we'll see what's, you know, the deal with that. They have access to War Scroll cards. I don't think this is a bad product, but I think for the asking price that GW has now, it's just not worth it, I would say. Interestingly enough, I don't see Beast of Chaos War Scroll cards, so I'm not sure what the deal there is. I guess that's going to be next week. Kind of surprising. Normally they release them alongside the Battle Tome, and we know that the Battle Tome has been announced for Beast as well, so I don't know what happened there. I'm basically just skim reading the article, but I don't know, it's kind of a little bit weird. Some Necromunda stuff. Kind of the entire internet is ablaze with this, and I don't blame anybody for this. Necromunda is like the most well-supported GW game right now. Every single week they get some cool models, and look at these guys. Like, this model looks sick. He's got insane detail. Like, look at this like armor stuff that he's got going on. Very realistic looking cloth. It looks absolutely fucking cool. He's got like a pretty interesting weapon there, which is clearly made of some pieces of the creature that he has, the Earthramite Doomscuttler. So that's like a pretty interesting idea. They've been doing these herders and beastmasters for like a couple weeks now, and so far every single one of them has looked really, really cool. He'd be nice in my Deathguard Cultist. Yeah, like all of these guys look fantastic. I don't know, dude. I got the original Necromunda box, the Underhive gang war thing that came out a number of years back with the Goliath and Escher gangs, and I assembled that and never painted it because I basically got it for the store for like a demo purpose, and I think I played like 3 games of it, of just the straight up like out of the box rules, and it was still pretty good. It seemed like a really good game at the time. Now, as far as I know, it has been reinvented like 7 times over by now. So we're literally in like almost a completely new edition of Necromunda, even after you consider that they rebooted it essentially. But it's interesting to see that there's essentially like a box game that GW loves so much. Honestly, like Necromunda guys, I don't know how many goats you sacrifice to get this treatment, but you get more models than AOS, I think, at this point, and it's incredible to me. I don't understand, but that's incredible. Apparently there's going to be an anthology of various, I want to say, Lumineth stories based on the fact that Teclis is on here, and it's called Archmage. There's a high chance of that. Prophet's Ruin looks like a Caradron audiobook. I'm assuming this got released before as a book and now it's an audiobook. You got Sigismund the Eternal Crusader in French, and of course there's more Warhammer Plus content. Interestingly enough, this seems to be like a pretty weak output for like 1 week, because we're getting 1 battle report with the new Gits rules. I might be interested in checking that out when it comes out on Wednesday, just to get like a couple glimpses at the new rules. And I mean, Transcend the Infinite, based on the picture here, which is pretty dope. He's a cool dude. He's an interesting character, to say the least. And obviously we'll get into the LVO stuff in literally just a second. So that's the Sunday stuff. I've made my case about Gits. We can talk about it some more later, but let's see if there's anything else interesting. And I know there's some outrageous shit that we'll get into, just you wait. So Las Vegas Open is happening this week. A lot of people, if you are on social media, you will see a lot of the people that you follow, you know, taking pictures of various trains, planes, and automobiles, and making their way over in some way to glorious Las Vegas. And I think that's fantastic. I'm jealous of those people. I'm unfortunately not going to be attending. It's way too far away from me to be able to do that. But maybe one day. Maybe one day. Now, as for the preview, we can check the time. I know there's other stuff announced, but time-wise, I want to get into this. So this is going to be Friday early morning. I'm not watching this live. This isn't too early. 7 a.m. is not so bad. But I have work on Friday. I'm not taking like a day or even a half a day off just to get up and watch this and tune in real time. Don't really see the point. I'll catch it once I get into work and I've settled in, probably a little bit past 8, almost closer to 9. So if it's still going, which I very much doubt, by the way, I don't think the preview is going to last that long, then I'll check it out. Most likely, I'll just look at the articles and then post it to like the Facebook group that I manage, and that's it. We do get a little idea of what they're going to be announcing. There's going to be something for 40k, because most of the time there's something for 40k. It's one of the biggest games. Interestingly enough, there's going to be more stuff for AOS. We did get a roadmap a couple weeks ago, so I'm hoping that they shed some light on what's actually going to be in that, because, I mean, frankly, at this point, we don't really have much confirmation. You know, we knew Beasts and Gits were happening, and apparently they're happening this weekend, so that's cool. Warhammer Horus Heresy, the big thing I'm curious about with Horus Heresy, actually, is whether or not they're going to keep doing the Primarchs again, because they did a new version of Horus, and he looks way better. The new Horus looks so much cooler than the old one. Like, you can clearly see that technology and sculpting in general has changed a lot over just the last, like, 10 years or so. And I would be very curious to see if they want to redo the Primarchs all over again. Keep in mind, it took them, like, 10 fucking years, it feels like, to go through, you know, the first time around. So I don't know. Warcry is also apparently getting a box of Khorne versus Khorne or Khorne versus Slaanesh, who knows? I don't care that much. I'm gonna be honest with you, I've never played Warcry. I got no inclination to even try it. I really hope that it's a good game for those that are into it. I've just had to come to terms with the fact that I'm not much of a skirmish gamer, basically. And it took me years to realize this. And for me, the breaking point, I guess, in this realization had to be when I was playing Mordheim. Like, living rules at Mordheim with my friends, and I was getting bored of it, even though it's supposed to be the greatest game of all time. And I can see why people would think that, because it is a good game, but I got bored to tears after a while. We did also go pretty hard on it, though, to be fair, so it might be less so that I hate the genre and more so, like, a little bit burnout, I guess, maybe is the right term for it. For the same reason, Underworlds, it's a good game, but I've just not been following along. The other day, I barely realized, like, oh yeah, there's been, like, another Ogre team. Oh, I never bought that. Crap. And eventually I'll get it, I guess, but I still haven't even done Hrothgorn and his man-trappers. They're just, like, sitting in my closet. I got them base-coded, and then I never did anything with them. I did a head swap on Hrothgorn because I didn't like his head out of the box. I didn't like his hat, more so. His face was okay, but the hat just was not good for me. And then Kill Team, same thing. It's just a skirmish rule set. Apparently it's getting a dog. It's getting a robo-dog, which is cool. I don't know. They've been doing a lot of dog models. Fantastic. Like, I like the little pet stuff, but just don't care that much at the end of the day. I mean, LVO is going to be fun, but I don't think it's going to be fun for the previews. Yeah, I don't want to be rude, but that's just like my impression. And then we have an actual AOS article about the Snarlfangs. Oh boy, the guys that I said that I hated. Let's go. Let's talk about them and read about them, and oh my god, I hate my life. I will mention that obviously the models look good. Like, these wolves look so much better. Let me just skip to the sprue pictures. So if you play Space Wolves and you don't like your Fenrisian wolves, which, funnily enough, are getting long in tooth, then I would not blame you if you were looking at these guys thinking like, oh boy, maybe I can use them. I would. If I were you, I would use these. And I would get rid of all the armor and stuff, maybe add some bionic bits, but yeah. These could be 40k models with a little bit of work, and they look so cool. Now, it's mentioned here that essentially, you know, Garrots broke apart into various kinds, and essentially the people that, well, the version of Garrots that were touched by the bad moon kind of hate the Git mob. But in the era of the Beast, now they have a truce between, you know, the tribes of the Underworld and the Overworld, so Moon Clan and Git mob, essentially, and they just want to shank everybody. Swiggity swooty coming for that wolfie. Oh yeah. But yeah, so essentially these guys apparently went to Hysh, the Realm of Light, and they've been menacing the 10 Paradises ever since. Now, the wildlife in Hysh is apparently very intelligent, so, you know, these Snarlfangs are super smart. possibly smarter than the actual Groths writing them. It's not, like, mentioned here, but I would say yes. The thing I don't understand, and is this part right here, so apparently these flea bags are vicious, cruel, and have highly toxic saliva. Now that's the thing I don't understand. Why do we need to make everything poisonous? Like, bro, you're putting this unit into a battle tome where Spider Fang is a thing. Like, Spider Venom already sucks. It's 2-hit mortal wounds, but it doesn't scale off of damage. Literally, Cruel Boys have taken the gimmick of Spider Fang and made it better. And made it, like, something infinitely cooler. Yeah, Poison Bite again? That's what I'm asking, Ren. Like, why do we need another Poison Bite unit? You're telling me that you're putting in yet another light cavalry unit into my army of goblins, and this also has venomous fangs. Like, is this literally a case of, like, hey, can I copy your homework? Sure, but don't make it obvious, and it's just the spiders or wolves? Or is this where we've gone? It's just the same unit. Like, someone needs to make that a meme. Like, corporate needs you to find the difference between these two pictures. And it's just a picture of Spider-Fang and another picture of these guys, and it's like, it's the same picture. It's the same fucking picture, bro. Light cavalry with poisonous bites, I guess. Why not? The models look good. I just don't understand why the fuck they're in this book. And they're like the least interesting part of this whole release for me. But apparently they're the unit we're getting, and, you know, we don't get to complain because other people don't really get new units most of the time. You get like one model, usually one hero, and then you're done with. So I guess, hey, let's go for Gloomspite. We actually got a new unit, I suppose. Yeah, you can see the sprue picks here. Apparently there's quite a bit of interchangeability. You can put the spears on the backs of the wolves, basically, so you can have either the bows or the spears. Because again, light cavalry, same shit as Spider-Fang. I can't, like, stress this enough. And then they do the nostalgia baiting by mentioning, like, oh, by the way, did you know that we used to make these ass-looking Wolf Riders back in the day? And I'm like, yes, GW, I do. I remember. I actually remember these. I was around when you were still selling these. And they looked so fucking shit, like, my god. It's so goddamn bad. No one bought these, by the way. The moment the Fenrisian Wolves were released, everyone and their mom was converting Wolf Riders out of those guys. Like, that's the only Wolf Rider you were ever gonna see. Some old heads who actually had like 90 of these would maybe put them on the table, but I mean, you can see why. Like, this is not a very, very nice bunch of units here, like a nice bunch of models. They just don't look good. They just don't look inspiring. And then they decided to remake them for some reason. Look, I don't know. I don't have to know. I'm confused, but that's apparently my natural state of being at this point, so at least we got a unit, right? Now, this one is funny. So this is a 40k article about the Primarch of the World Eaters, Angron. And apparently, Angron can't be banished. Find out why in new lore from Codex World Eaters. I mean, just let's take in this beautiful headline. The article's title is like BuzzFeed out of 10. They nailed it. This is like the best clickbaity style 40k article you could ever make. Like, honestly, hats off. Whichever intern did this, I'm not gonna say they deserve to get paid, because that's not how, you know, interns work. But maybe, like, I don't know, offer them a coffee or something. They did a pretty decent job. We got a little bit of exposition, you know, there's the Great Rift, you got the Arcs of Omen, still not 100% clear what those are, but I honestly just want to read the book, which I have pre-ordered now. Hopefully it'll get here over the next week or so. And the great game by the Chaos Gods has begun anew, and yada yada yada. World Eaters are reaching heights of power not seen since the Great Crusade. And yes, Angron. Now, let's look at this glorious art. This is good art. This is fantastic art. Like, this looks sick. You got chain weapons galore. You got the Butcher's Nails. You got demonic, like, possessed armor. You got the close combat cultists. You got skulls aplenty. This is good. This is fantastic art. Like, 10 out of 10. And you got, like, muscular double chain axe man in the center, just taking center stage. It's glorious. If this is the quality of the art in the book, that's gonna be good. That's gonna be a good time. So apparently, you know, Angron has returned, which is interesting because he got banished into the Shadow Realm, aka the Warp, a while ago during one of the wars for Armageddon. And the big thing that they decided to do different this time around with the lore is that he can no longer be truly banished. So I'm gonna need you to hold on to your chair right here, because what I'm about to read out is maybe the dumbest shit that has ever been written. And we'll, like, go through one at a time about all the problems with it. but I'm just gonna ask you to just, like, brace for impact, because the amount of stupid shit, the amount of dumb information pouring into your earlobes in about 8 seconds is gonna reach critical levels. So first off, Angron is apparently impervious to being banished even by Void Ship class weapons. Like, literally a fucking turbo laser mounted on a ship shoots him and he fucks off into the warp, but he'll be back. Like, he won't be gone for long. That's okay, that's a neat little trick. It's a little outrageous, considering, you know, how fucking devastating those weapons are, but let's ignore that for a moment. Let me just read you this. Should Angron somehow be cast back into the warp, he reemerges unscathed precisely 8 weeks, 8 days, and 8 hours later, heralded by 8 crimson omens that strike fear into the hearts of all who witness them. You'd better believe he'll be 8 times as mad too. So let's just go one at a time. Let's just take it all in. Let's just go one at a time. So in the event that you kill Angron, he will reemerge exactly 8 weeks, 8 days. 8 days, by the way, is another week and a day, but I'm just saying, and 8 hours later. That's really weird. We also genuinely know that if you kill a certain amount of models in-game, from a rules perspective, he just comes back. He can come back like 3 times in one fucking game of 40k. How the fuck does that work? Yeah, like, so 9 weeks and 32 hours? Yes, exactly. Like, they just found a fancy way to say 9 weeks and 32 hours, which, by the way, is not that short of a time. Like, if I had a UPS delivery that took 9 weeks and 32 hours, I'd be fucking upset. I'd be like, what the fuck's going on? I wouldn't be scared shitless, even if I do get 8 notifications that might be called Crimson Omens. I'd just be like, bro, why the fuck isn't my shit here? So this is really dumb. This is really dumb. But it gets worse. Not only does it make no sense, because 8 weeks and 8 days is just 9 weeks, but, you know, moving on from that. The thing that doesn't make sense is there is no time in the warp. So in the warp, there's no, you know, time stuff going on. Now, unless this is some kind of a deal that was struck with someone in real space, which is very unlikely because it doesn't work like that. So the way banishment works is you do certain rites. At least this is how it has historically worked in 40k. If you want to banish a demon, you do certain rites, and then, you know, you just, you banish a demon, and because of the ritual that you do, the demon won't be able to come back into your realm for X amount of time, but this doesn't really work. Yeah, the Grey Knights just make a recurring reminder in their calendars. Yeah, like, imagine fucking Grandmaster Caldor Drago getting his phone out and going like, okay, Siri, I just killed Angron. Can you remind me in 9 weeks and 32 hours that I need to kick his ass again? Thank you. It's just so fucking stupid. It's so dumb. And again, it's so weird because in-game, my man will literally come back 2 or 3 times a single battle. So I will make this joke every single time when I see Angron at an event. Anytime I kill him and he comes back the next battle round, I'll be like, it's good to know that 9 weeks have passed. Like, it's nice to finally know, after 35 years of 40k, just how long a single game takes. Because I was under the impression that we're doing firefights, where, you know, you might, I don't know, your actual battle might be like 10 minutes in real time. But apparently it's like, I don't know, fucking half a year, based on Angron, strictly. This is not that great art, by the way. Like, everything I said that was good here is not really good here. It's monochrome, it doesn't really make sense, the perspective, none of this makes sense. It's just not good art. This is phoned in. This was phoned in, this is good. Fire this guy that made this, and tell the guy that made this to do more shit. You know what, give this guy's salary to this guy, and then you're good. Just do that. We do get some actually good Angron art, though, so this is actually pretty good. They also mentioned his weapons. He has none of the weapons, by the way, that he had before in lore. It's not really explained here why that's the case. I don't know if they just gave a name to the Black Axe. Well, not the Black Axe, but the Black Sword, but apparently it's a completely different thing now, because instead of it being just the Black Sword, it's just Samniarius, which is also apparently a Slanesh-bound demon weapon. So there's a Slanesh Greater Demon bound in here, which Angron killed. It's not really obvious when he did this, but apparently he also forged the blade while he was beating the shit out of it, so that's kind of cool. I like the lore for this. It's a little bit weird. I don't know if they did this during the Heresy, or if this is an actually different sword than the Black Sword of Angron. I'm assuming this is a different sword, to be honest, which is a little out of left field, but it gives me hope that maybe the Black Sword will come back as like a Crusade relic or something, if nothing else, as like a nice little reference. But yeah, he's looking positively reptilian in this image, and that's kind of a good thing. He looks like properly inhumane, and I think I like that about him. He looks kind of nice here. Now, the thing that they kind of confirm here is that, you know, World Eaters are amassing in great number, but they're not actually together. So they're still broken apart. They still, thanks to Karn, broke apart as a legion on Skalathrax when Karn decided, like, I'm gonna turn up the heat and literally burnt both the Emperor's Children and most of the World Eaters to a fine crisp during the frozen, freezing nights. And since then, they've been kind of mad at each other, which is, you know, that's one way to hold a grudge, but I guess time is different in the Warp, as we've established. Now, this is a piece of artwork that I'm going to need you to do, like, a little mental exercise. So look at this image, and like, just mentally block out, like, this part of the image with the Terminator-looking guy in the center, and also this part, because this is clearly a gun. Without those two things, I guess maybe also that orc gun there, but without those things, this is just AOS art, right? That's just not me. This is like a Blood Warrior wading through the mud fighting Ironjaws. I get that these are chain axes, but they could also just be really weird, like axes from the realm of metal, to be real with you. So I don't hate it, but it's just a weird piece of art in my opinion. I guess it's kind of a nice style, but the black, like, tentacles here and stuff, it doesn't really make sense. I don't know what this is all trying to be. Maybe it's tied to some kind of blurb in the book, but I mean, hey, it's basically, they got two art pieces out of the 4 shown were pretty good, so that's something. Angron, mechanically, will just keep coming back. They have, like, a really dumb explanation for it, and that's pretty much it. That's what we got over the last, like, 2 days, and it's incredible that in the last 2 days it did so much shit. It's truly sickening, actually. But it is what it is. Give me but a moment while I actually change my camera here so that we can go into build mode. And I mean, we'll keep talking about the stuff that we just witnessed, obviously, but I am gonna go into build mode because we actually need to make progress on stuff. So let's see, a little more down, I think. Yeah, that's looking like pretty good. Give me but one more moment. Okay, we should be back. Just messing some with the microphone. That probably peaked it a little. I'm sorry. Did not mean to do that. That's what I was trying to avoid very, very carefully, but it was not to be. But yeah, that's the news show. I don't know if we'll do that regularly all the time. I can't really promise that. But hey, it was kind of fun going through it. And I basically want to do it mostly because of the gits and because I thought that Angron coming back every 9 weeks is fucking hilarious. He's just a package that will not leave. And it doesn't make any sense. I don't know. I don't know, dude. Oh, let me also change stream information real briefly. We're just gonna be doing big boy building now. There we go. Alrighty, so let me show you like some stuff because I actually was working on things even on Friday. I had some plans for Friday that ended up essentially falling through. I was gonna go out, but pretty late in the evening, and then by the time I was told that I would be welcome at this place for a number of reasons, it was basically too late for my taste, so I didn't end up going. But I, until then, was building stuff. So I've made quite a bit of progress. Let me show you. So one little change you'll notice immediately is this guy is on his base now. So he has been glued / pinned to the base. I mean, I can show you he is pinned. As you can see, he's been pinned to the base properly. We've also changed the position of the arm quite a bit. So right arm has been sliced off, sawed off, if you will. And it's been adjusted so that it sits completely differently. I haven't done any of the structural green stuff, including on his feet, which might be a mistake, realistically speaking. Let me try to get this thing to focus, by the way. I don't know why it doesn't even attempt to focus now. Literally nothing is in focus right now on the image, so I don't know how that works. Normally this camera like strains to get some stuff in focus, but right now it's just straight up giving up, and I don't know what's going on with that. So I'm gonna just keep talking and hope that it'll work out eventually. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. Hello, buddy. Do you want to actually do something? Do you want to behave like a camera, maybe? Is that perhaps something? Oh, it just did it. It just did it. It only took like 19 hours, but then it realized, like, oh shit, I have a focus functionality. Amazing, amazing. But yeah, so his arm has been repositioned. His right arm is actually in the planned final position now, and I'll show you why we decided to change it as well. He also has his left arm attached. Now, the left arm I'm still thinking about moving. He got the closed fist that would normally have the Gatebreaker's Fort Crusher flail. Excuse me, I couldn't even pronounce it right there. It still needs a little bit of gap filling, but it has a lot of the other stuff removed, including, but not limited to, the entire flail that would be hanging here. And I think from the front it looks kind of good. Like, it looks believable from the front, the position. And I'll show you what I mean. So this is not glued completely. I'm just very lucky that both of the weapons so far that we've wanted to put into the arms of these guys has just kind of fit into various, like, hands. So this is the plan for this guy. He's gonna have this entire tree up on his shoulder, basically. He's gonna need a new wrist made from green stuff, as you can kind of see. I'm just kind of holding it there. And you might have also noticed that we had to slice off, I actually did this still on stream, we have to slice off the horns here on the little, like, back piece that he has. I could have left this one on, but I wasn't sure, and also I think it would have looked weird to just have one poking out there. So instead I sliced both of them off, and what we're going to do is we're going to sculpt some fur. It's not going to be as good looking as the fur that's on there currently, unfortunately, but it's going to be decent enough, I think. And that's the idea. So I'm just going to have, like, a bunch of fur here. I'm also planning on maybe hiding some of the nasty, nasty slices here in his armpit with a piece from the Ogre Maw Tribe's Stonehorn, because I believe there's an animal pelt there that actually has, like, a paw. And we could actually build, like, a fur section here and then have it hang there. We'd still have to green stuff the armpit, don't get me wrong, but we could hide it from view, so if we fuck it up a little, it's not going to be that visible. But other than that, this guy is essentially complete. Like, there's obviously a bunch of bits missing. There's still a piece of his beard that needs to be glued on. I don't think I'm going to be giving him the hair that he would normally have. A lot of structural green stuff, and obviously a ton of other detail work on the actual, like, pants / loincloth that he wears, but that's true of the first one as well. So currently we got this man on the base, and we got his friend Ugurnul the Crazed. Kind of still haven't decided if that's the name I'm going to be sticking with, to be honest. Like, I kind of like it, but I kind of don't. But yeah, he's a guy with, like, a ship's mast as a spear, and this guy's going to have the big ol', essentially, like, tree, probably like the heart of a wildwood or something. It's actually the what is it? The Vengeful Skullroot Sylvaneth Endless spell combined with one of the new Wildwood trees. And again, we'll still need to smooth the transition between them. You can see it a little bit on stream, but it's very noticeable in real life. So I'm gonna have to green stuff that and basically, like, make the two go into one. And he's obviously gonna be getting some branches as well, although a lot of them will be broken off, because that would make a lot more sense logically. So, with that out of the way, what that means for us is there's a couple ways we could take this. On the one hand, I could jump into doing the structural green stuff and maybe sculpt some of the fur with green stuff on, you know, Tree Man / Gangsta Man, because he's got a little bit of a gangsta lean. So we could do that, but I don't want to, and I didn't even bring out my green stuff. I might have some just underneath my table here anyway, but I'm not planning on using it. So instead what we'll do is I'll crack open the box of remaining bits and get started on the third and final Mega-gargant. Now, he's going to be a weird one, so we're going to be building a lot of the stuff that we want to use. The big difference is going to be that I have very little idea of how the fuck we're going to make him happen. One of the bits that I'm going to use is not even something that I have access to right now. I could just get it out of my closet, it's totally fine, but I just forgot to bring it. But we'll see. So essentially I want to kind of make him like a giant version of a fanatic, like a Moon Clan Loot Smasher fanatic. So he's going to be spinning around, he's going to be holding a rope in some way. The rope is going to be made of a piece of brass rod like this, because this will not break. And I don't know, we might magnetize it, I'm not sure. The idea for magnetization is there, but I'm a little scared of it too at the same time. It would make transportation a lot easier, but then, I don't know, there's a part of me that's like, I probably should have magnetized a lot of the stuff on these guys and I didn't, and I just don't care, I'll figure out the transportation later. So there's a part of me that's still debating that. But I have very little idea about the pose. We'll have to do probably the most amount of cutting, because with this guy, we're going to have to change both arms, and it's going to be, I think, from the shoulder down, actually. We're going to have to do a ton of cutting. We have 2 straight arms left that we can use, so that's at least, you know, positive for us, because that's what we need. But the leg position is something that I have an idea for, but we'll have to look at it. So with that out of the way, let's actually grab the bits, right? Let's get into it. So, we have his base, and it's holding a lot of the pieces that we'll need. We built the body originally with all the other dudes, and he's gonna have 1 arm from the Kraken Eater. Now, it's not really a big deal, because I'm probably gonna slice off all the bits you can see here. The hangy bits, because it's not gonna be like that. We don't yet know if gravity's gonna go like that. The gory trophies are cool, though, so we might keep those and put it back somewhere on the other models. So we'll try to do it nicely. Same deal over here. We'll probably just do like some green stuff, like wrapping here, and then like put a bunch of shields on his arm, basically, kind of in the style of this. This is also a bit that could have gone on our big tree man, but we didn't put it on there because we already have this bit in the army. So there's a part of me that's thinking instead I'll do it with other shields, so that they're all vastly different, and that's kind of what I'm leaning towards, but we'll see. And this is going to be his other straight arm. This is just a bit from the Fort Crusher flail that I basically collected here, but we can move it away for now. Incidentally, I do have the actual business end of the Fort Crusher flail, and there is one thing that I'm considering, and if we clean this up and actually get like a nice drill piece, it could be like a modular piece. And let me show you what I mean, if I can. So like, look at this, like that. I'll just hold it in place, and hopefully, you know, you'll be able to see what I'm getting at. We could take the masked spear for Ugurnul and essentially, you know, turn this thing into a hammer whenever we want, if we just drill the hole. Or we can also just glue it. It's basically up to us. But yeah, it would look kind of cool. The thing that's keeping me from it mostly is that with the running pose, the actual broken mast, I think, looks more aggressive. And I really like the silhouette of this. The hammer doesn't ruin it, but it looks kind of like a flimsy hammer, especially next to the Beast Smasher's giant tree trunk hammer. So I like the spear a little bit more currently. But there is a part of me that's thinking, like, we could do like a pretty neat little hammer style thing. I'll get the box. If we need some Dwarven shields for the big guys, I have a lot of spares. Oh, I was gonna ask actually, Ren, so thank you for offering. We'll get in touch about that, because I'd be really into a bunch of Dwarven shields. I'll probably, since I'll need to buy another Mega-gargant anyway, I'll probably get some Stormcast shields for the Beast Smasher as well, because they have a different like size. I might ask some folks, like locals, if they have like some Chaos Warrior shields as well. I don't know how like one of the dudes that recently started Slaves of Darkness ended up building his actual new Chaos Warriors. But yeah, I'll ask around and get some trophies, basically. Give me but one moment while I get the box of Mega-gargant goodness. Because that was in the background the whole time. And we're back in full capacity. We don't actually need the paper clips, I think, right now, so... I kind of collected all the bits that I have for Mega-gargants in here, and we don't really know if we have enough. I mean, as I mentioned in the past, one of the people that I knew back when this army came out, a couple months after, approached me and asked me, like, hey, do I want to sell a bunch of my bits? And I said yes to it, even though I normally wouldn't do that. And I kind of regret it now, but it has made it more of a creative exercise for sure, so it's not all bad. I can't really complain. I wouldn't say that I got bamboozled. I haven't been ruined financially or otherwise by this decision, but it has made things a lot more interesting, which is okay, I guess. This kind of helps though. So they have the beginning of the instruction booklet here. So all of these guys are actually marked with a different kind of color, as you can clearly see. So Kraken Eater is blue, War Stomper bits are green, and the unique Gatebreaker bits are pink. So we've used in terms of pink bits, we've used the right hand holding the 2 people, because that's on Ugurnul, aka Running Man. We've also just used the Gatebreaker left hand, because that's on Tree Man, who I don't think has a name yet. probably randomly generated something, but I never settled on anything. But either way, we've definitely used the War Stomper left arm. We've actually used 2 of those, because we apparently had to. I don't think we have 3, but we'll check. It doesn't matter that much, basically. Because we have the Kraken Eater hand, well, not hand, but arm, essentially. And in terms of hands, the difficulty is going to be that the only right hand that we have is the one holding the net. So we're going to have to work with that. We also do have access to the Kraken Eater's like Shipwreck or War Club holding hand on the left. So those are the 2 hands we're going to use, basically. And everything else should still be a-okay, because it's separate pieces. So let's get into it. One of the things I want to look at first, and it's a little weird compared to the other stuff, is maybe the head, because I want to see what angle this man is looking in. Like, in terms of the body, how tilted. Oh, sorry, that was probably very, very loud. I just broke everything, but hopefully it'll be fine. I don't think my audio got messed up. It just probably peaked very, very loudly because I hit my heater and the table leg here as I was tucking myself into the desk. But yeah, so we're going to look at a ton of these available bits that we still have, and we're going to start with the neck, because the neck position determines the head position on these guys, and I'd like to see what direction this guy's looking in to kind of inform the pose a little bit. Because like I said, I haven't settled on a final pose just yet. And we can just get into it, basically. This is not a head, this is like a heel. Almost the same thing, but not quite. I see some of the bits for the various other stuff already, but so far nothing that we're really looking for. You can see we have another Kraken Eater arm here. So if for some reason we wanted to use another one of those, it's an option. This is, I think, yeah, this is going to be one of the hands that we would use, that we still have access to. So yeah, this is going to be one of the hands that we have with the net. And this is the face of the gentleman that we're going to be building. So let's immediately jump into that and start working away. Interestingly enough, this guy has like a kind of weird head in that regard, because it's all just the Endless Void. Like, you get his head, you get piece 120, which is over here from the looks of it, but it's basically all hollow, which is an interesting way of doing it. It's good from the perspective of being able to use the hood for various other conversions on other Gargants of the Mega-gargant variety. It's interesting because this is like a head that if you want to use without the hood, you actually need to bust out your green stuffing skills to the max, because you'd have to build the whole fucking thing. That would normally be under the hood, you gotta build all of it. No other way. So 119, what am I looking at? Is that the neck? That is the neck, okay. It just looked a little weird. And by a little weird, I mean a lot weird. Let's see. It's so weird to me because I'm looking at these sprues as if I'm seeing them for the first time, even though we've been working with them for the last like 20 hours, I want to say. Quite a bit of time, actually. Maybe not all of it was on stream, as I mentioned, because of last Friday, but still. And you have to also remember, as I mentioned, I sold a lot of the bits off of these, and in order to do that, I had to cut them off, like off of the sprues, I think, for the most part. So it's weird. Like, I have very little concept of a lot of these bits. Like, I have another one of these, but this one's lacking a lot of the bits, so I guess I sliced off the stuff from here, which is kind of interesting. I'm trying to figure out if this is, because I'm so confused if this is the same set of bits, but I don't think it is. I don't think it actually is. So that might explain my confusion. It just looks vaguely similar. I guess eventually we'll need... Let's see. Yeah, there's also this side of the little, like, hood that he wears, which we could also pick off right now. We might as well grab this while we're here. And let's see. 122 is just that, okay. I thought maybe his back was like a different bit. The Gatebreaker definitely has like the most interesting, I guess, like head build in that regard. Because all the other ones, you essentially build the neck and the back part it's all kind of the same thing, just like slightly different details. And then with this guy, it's like all one piece. The One Piece is real, as they say. I don't know, I never watched the show. But yeah, so this apparently is a completely different thing than the other one. This is just a mostly empty sprue. We might need this, like, last 2 bits off of here for something. Some random garbage. We do have a complete other arm here, and we'll have to consider that. I think what we'll do is, because I'm pretty sure that I recognize this, I'll just grab this immediately. And we'll see which arm we like more, basically. This is gonna be this is an alternate left arm that I didn't know we had access to. I thought we had run out of these. And we've already used this literally in all of the cases so far, which might make it a little bit boring, but at least we're familiar with it. So we'll see. We'll see for the final pose which one works better. I don't mind building it either way, because if nothing else, we'll have it for like a potential 4th Mega-gargant, who is going to be the Beast Smasher, who incidentally will probably not use these arms, but I'm not sure. Too early to call it. I suppose we could also just get the feet bits sliced off, since I'm pretty sure at this stage we're kind of comfortable figuring out where each of these goes. So we might as well cut them off right now, and eventually we'll build them. That's probably going to be the next step after we've built the actual neck/head. Normally we would lead with the feet first, actually, put your best foot forward, as they say, but the reason now we don't care so much is because we already know the leg and feet position. We've worked with 2 Mega-gargants up until this point, so we have a pretty good idea of what the base of that is, and right now what's going to be more important for this particular pose is definitely the neck, especially because if we want to build this guy like without his hood, then it's going to involve a lot of building, like an absolute lot of building. From the looks of it, we have yet another one of these arms, which is leaving me confused, because the math does not add up on that, does it? Like, we had 3 megas, and we just cut out 3 of these. Is this the other arm? Did I like miss something here? No, because yeah, that arm is vastly different than the other one. That's a 2-piece arm. And we know that this goes together like this, and it will have that little section on it. Maybe this is different. I can't tell. Not convinced. Not convinced. I mean, we'll figure it out. But we do know for a fact that we have access to at least this bit. I think this might be the one that I was talking about. Yes, this is indeed it. Oh, I know why I was confused, because this one that I just put together, I just reminded myself of something, because one of the arms we haven't put together at all is obviously the kind of outstretched right arm, which would normally be for the War Stomper. So this is actually going to be like this arm over here, and that's why it's a little different. So this is like a right arm right over here. This is potentially a left arm that we can work with. And then this might in fact be the same bit, basically, that we didn't need to slice off at that point. It's all pretty similar looking. Yeah, I'd say this is the exact same. Indeed, indeed. So this is just like a repeat. I'm just going to move this to the side. We won't really be needing that. That makes a lot more sense, because again, the math actually checks out on that. Whereas the previous time, I was like, this makes no sense. Why would I have more of these things? Yeah, he's got a handsome fucking face, for sure. We can at least admit that. And I'm trying to figure out how it's all gonna go together. pretty simply once we cleaned it up from the looks of it. Well, with that in mind, let's actually get into it. I suppose at that stage we might as well move this thing over here as well, because technically it would be for Tree Man, not this guy. Alright, let's make some order in the court and actually get into this. You can actually tell that I cleaned up my workspace a little bit over the weekend, because I had a game. At my place. Two friends actually played 40k. It was Blood Angels versus Tyranids. And, I mean, I don't think anybody's going to be surprised by the outcome, but Nids ended up winning. Although, to be fair, my Blood Angel friend brought, like, a pretty soft list that he was just trying for fun, so... That's the copium that he can inhale so that he feels better about himself. I mean, hey, Nids have gotten some pretty major point changes recently, in addition to a number of other changes. I wouldn't say that they're not the meta-busting mess that they were. They're still really strong, but I think they're manageable for the most part. This was more of a friendly game either way. This wasn't tournament prep. They did try out the new Arcs of Omen detachment, but that's about it, basically. That's like the only new thing. Well, I guess the Balanced Data Slates and the Armor of Contempt as like a passive rule. Let me hydrate for but a moment. But yeah, so some new stuff. Some new stuff was tested out. I mean, Arcs of Omen, apparently just easier list writing, from what I can tell. I've not tried it. I've only actually played one game of 40k this year, and that was like a demo game where I just built like a combat patrol of orcs. But I have played a lot of AOS, and I'm really happy about that already. And I'd like to play more. Interestingly enough, I started tuning into one of the Warhammer TV battle reports. Obviously the one featuring Sons of Bahamut, because I'm on a giant kick right now. And I did notice that they were playing Open War in that, using the Open War generator from the book. And that's not something I've tried out before. So I'm hoping that the next time I play AOS, instead of using the old Open War cards, which are still good by the way, they're still fantastic, especially for friendly games. They're very hard to get these days because GW doesn't make them anymore. But I'm hoping to try out the Open War generator actually, because I was pretty down about it before. But just seeing it like briefly pop up in the WarCom like battle report show, I was like, hey, this actually looks a lot better than I thought it would. Like this all kind of so far makes logical sense. So I'm actually looking to try that out in the near future. Perhaps even this weekend, we'll see. Remains to be seen. But yeah, I was actually thinking about the timeline for these guys that I have. So obviously the big goal with this army, although we don't have access to one of the models yet because I haven't bought him, is to be ready for AOS Worlds, as I mentioned many times by now. And that is in, well, at the end of May right now is the timeline for that. It might change, although I hope that it doesn't, because one of these, maybe not so early yet, but at some point, you know, we'd like to buy, like, plane tickets and all that stuff, basically, with my friends, because we'd like to attend, but we're not going to take a 16-hour drive to do it. Just doesn't really seem that smart at that point. Going via plane is going to be much more comfy, at least is the idea. But, yeah, so the big goal with this army is to get them ready by Worlds. But the other goal that I have is I would like for this army to be painted to about a battle-ready standard, I would say, in actually 18 days. Now, that's a little scary because I'm going to say that I'll probably need... If we consider that I also need to work on 3 Man Crushers, I'll probably need like 9 days, basically, of like 4-hour sessions each, roughly, to really be able to get these guys battle-ready. So 3 Mega-gargants and the 3 small guys. And that's putting it generously, because I didn't really account for the small guys, who only have just like 1 layer of paint on them. But let's say 9 days. But that actually means that in terms of the build phase, if you're, you know, doing your math and following along at home, that leaves me with just 9 days to finish building these guys. Now, one of them, as you can see, is still in pieces, and all the other ones are still missing a bunch of pivotal pieces as well, including, but not limited to, actually structural green stuff work that hasn't been done until now. Although, to be fair, I haven't done it mostly, well, there's 2 reasons. The one of the reasons is obviously procrastination. I just haven't felt like doing that, so I haven't been doing it. But the other reason is the fact that I would like to do all of it at the same time if possible. Because it just seems more efficient to like sit down for 2 hours, get the green stuff out, do a bunch of the other stuff, and as the green stuff dries, maybe move into the more sculpty parts of it. Or maybe mix the two together. That would probably be the most ideal, at least in like the majority of cases, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Let's see, did I miss anything here? I guess this is also like an attachment point that we can get rid of. So it's going to be a fine timeline for that. Now, of course, I could just take the guys like unpainted, but I don't like painting with unpainted stuff that much. I would much rather have stuff be at least battle ready. I'm not going to busy myself with the other stuff just yet, because instead we're going to build this part of the structure, and while that cures, we can actually keep cleaning the other bits. Just going to make sure that it's burnt out. A little nozzle of the glue here, obviously. So we have a pretty strict timeline ahead of us right now as a consequence. But I'm hoping that we'll be able to make it happen, basically. Now, there's a number of reasons why this build is going to be a little bit more difficult for us than it otherwise would be, if you actually buy the 3 mega-gargants like I did. If you have access to all of the bits from all of them, one of the big benefits is obviously this guy only having a face is not that much of a problem when you consider that you have other complete heads in the kit. But we don't have complete heads in the kit because we decided to fuck around and find out that maybe later on it would have been more useful. But just as an interesting little point before we actually glue the guys, it wouldn't be very, very difficult to add this head to this big guy, for example. Like, it would require some cutting and a little bit of putty, but you would not have to rebuild his entire head or slash build an entirely new head. You could literally just like cut out his existing face and put this on there. And it would look pretty good. It would actually look pretty good, funnily enough. He's got a Thanos chin. Something of a Thanos chin going on here. Don't want to alarm anybody, but... Alright, in the meantime we got our glue going, which is always a fun time. And now, let's look at how the neck attaches. Kind of everywhere. Solid, good to know. Along the thing here. I think it also attaches to his actual like bottom of the head. As most necks do, as it turns out. Most of our necks tend to do that. But yeah, so we'll see if we can actually make it all happen the way I intend to. And if we can't, then hey, it's only my fault that we weren't able to. And I mean, hey, worst comes to worst, we'll try out the army rules-wise with an unpainted version. It's not the end of the world, it's just I'm more elitistic about myself, I suppose, for some reason. But we'll figure it out. I'm also very much considering how I would like to paint these guys, but knowing, you know, how most people tend to do these things, after a certain while of painting miniatures, you tend to figure out your style, and unless you make it a point to do a different style on every one of your projects, or every now and then you'll vary it up, most people obviously tend to stick to the one thing that they know. So I'll probably just paint them in my usual style, although there is a part of me that is considering doing like a cell-shaded thing. You will commit Sudoku. Perhaps. But yeah, there is a part of me that is considering actually trying to do like a cell-shaded style, because my hyper highlights are almost like completely there. I would just have to add like black lining basically to sell the effect. And I did used to do black lining when I originally started painting, especially in 40K, before I really figured out like shape paints and other stuff. There weren't that many resources, and I wasn't a very social painter. My local like crew was not very useful in terms of teaching me any paint know-how. So I basically got all my intel from just one dude who was actually a really good painter but had a very different style. But he kind of showed me like the 90s style painting with a lot of like black lining and stuff, and I was actually kind of into it. So there is a part of me that's considering like, maybe we go down that route deliberately. But yeah, so he's got half a head now with half a hood. It's not bad. Let's make the rest of his head happen. It's not as complex as I thought that it would be, which is genuinely a good thing in this case. I mean, hey, it's gonna be a good time either way. There's also a part of me that would want to maybe do a slightly more realistic take on these guys in terms of painting. So abandoning the hyper highlights that I tend to do. And it would definitely make for like a more realistic looking thing. Try to keep those highlights like more grounded. Try to focus more on the dry brush and very like just spot highlight style of thing. And incorporate more glazing, for sure. So that is something I'm considering as well. I think what we'll try to do, actually, the best course of action right now would actually be to try to do the non-hyper highlight, non-like traditional for me style, and try to do a lot more with dry brushing and a lot more with glazing than I usually tend to do, even though I use glazing quite a lot in the paint schemes that I employ. But basically focus on it a little bit more even, and the reason for that is because you can always add the hyper highlights after. If I'm not satisfied, then I'll have better transitions between the colors anyway. And if I am satisfied, then we just don't need to do the laser highlights that I normally do. So that seems to make the most sense to me, to basically do it like that, but we'll see what we end up doing once we actually get there. Just trying to figure out how this will actually attach. Can't quite tell right now. Maybe we did miss a piece, I'm not sure. Oh no, it's probably like that, but it's definitely like that. Interesting. That's a really interesting way of putting it together. Okay, I see. Well, with that in mind, let's actually start cleaning this off then. Let's go. It's probably more dry brushing, a little bit more focus on glazes, trying to make the color transitions smoother. Maybe play around with a little bit more discolorations on the skin. So make the folds of the skin kind of reddish. Make the bottom of the legs, like nearing the bottom, a little bit more worn. Definitely like try to tint some of the veins if he has any visible vascularity. Tint it with like blues and greens and stuff. Maybe give them some bruises, again, with the same colors, or one of the colors. That could be interesting too. And like I said, afterwards, if I really want to go ham, like with my Granite Clean one a couple months ago, I can still go back in and be like, hey, I just, did a bunch of like off-white highlights on this guy. And I think a lot of people aren't into that particular style when I do that, but I kind of like it, and I really have fun painting it, and that's like the most important thing. I'll be 100% real. For Worlds, I got no expectations for myself. The only thing I would like to do is to have a painted army, and I would like it to be Sons of Behemat right now. The only way I could see myself in taking Trogs again, if they give them the most fun set of rules imaginable. But I don't even know, like, in theory what that would be, because Trogs currently have a fun set of rules, they're just largely inefficient. And that's fine. That's fine, because they're a fun army nonetheless. I have a lot of fun with them, I've played with them this year, and it was a great time. I actually played against Ren from chat, and it was a great game. He busted out his Fire Slayers. We had a nice bare-knuckle brawl in the center of the table. And the first half of the game, I was basically dominating with sheer dice rolls, and then his Fire Slayers woke up, especially his Runefather, and he owned the crap out of like my entire army, and it was glorious to behold. It's the kind of thing that you want to see, right? It's like the big hero man on the giant lizard was like, oh, my people are dying, let me just put my ass into gear, and he like murderized everything that was near him. It was fucking amazing. But that's what I mean, Trogs are already fun. They don't need to change that part. They actually nailed that part. They're pretty fun. They can improve the rules, they can improve the various abilities, but I don't think, I mean, I hope that they don't become like the premier. Yeah, Grimnir was proud that day, for sure, Ren. But yeah, I hope that they don't become the premier competitive army, even though they have cool models. I just wouldn't want to see that. It would just be weird, They're a bunch of filthy animals, and it's fine if they perform like a bunch of filthy animals. Not every single army has to be hyper efficient. This, I don't think, is a hot take. I think this is just a hobbyist take. Like, I think it's okay to have armies that are really good in the competitive scene, and then there are armies that are just like, hey, this one's, like, okay. Like, I don't mind, basically. So, my one expectation for myself is I would like to take a fully painted Sons of Behemoth army that will probably be made up of 4 various mega-gargants, because it would look really, really nice. It's also, like, a very easy list to build and pilot. And it's gonna make for swingy games, for sure. Like, I'm either gonna, you know, win pretty big and pretty early on, or I'm going to lose pretty early on, and by a big margin. And I'm okay with that. I like the gambling part of playing Destruction. I genuinely do. Because whatever happens, I'll have more time at the event to either enjoy myself, or just, you know, like, get drunk. And that's totally fine. That's a part of going to a tournament, basically. Just have a good time, grab a couple drinks, socialize with people. Obviously, also socialize with your opponent. Like, needless to say, you know, like, while you're at the table, make sure that you get the guy's name. You talk a little bit about, like, what he's into, invite him for a drink and all of that. But I already do that anyway, so maybe I can also invite other people for drinks, you know? But that's basically what I have in mind. I am humble enough, and I think rightfully so. Like, AOS Worlds, perhaps now because of LVO, it's not going to be the largest Age of Sigmar tournament in the world. Because I think LVO has over 200 Age of Sigmar attendees, which is incredible, by the way. Like, really hats off to the TOs for that one. That's amazing, and I wish I could be there. Like, last time we got 140 people at Worlds, which is still really, really good, and is the largest tournament that I've ever attended, for sure, last year's AOS Worlds. But out of that many people, I think there will doubtless be a lot of folks that will have better painted stuff than me. And that's not because I paint like shit. I paint okay. It's mostly because there's gonna be people that paint really, really well. Like, turns out, if you take over 100 people, there's gonna be a bunch of them that are very, very serious about painting, and rightfully so. If that's the part of the hobby that's important to them, then they should, you know, do their best to make it, like, an outstanding performance, essentially, in terms of painting. And of course, a lot of those people that paint really well will also kick my ass, because they might also play more games. Renaissance men do exist. They're not completely unheard of in this hobby. There are people that will literally school you at the painting table, and then when you deploy your army, they're also going to school you on the gaming table. And again, I respect those people. So I realistically know that I'm not going to be making, like, a runaway performance. I'm not going to be getting on a podium. I'm not going to be getting best painted. I'm not going to be getting any of that. And that's fine, because at the end of the day, it's okay to be okay. It's fine to just be a dude at a tournament. You don't have to be the best of anything. If you want to be, of course, then you gotta put in those hours. But for me right now, the amount of hours I'm putting in here is more about, I want to make this army. Like, I want to build it, because I haven't built it before. Because I was lazy, I was unmotivated, I didn't care. There's a number of reasons there, but I want to change that. And for me, basically, I'm already succeeding at my goal. If I get this army into a playable state, and it'll be fully painted, not just battle ready, but parade ready. If I can do that, then I'll be happy. That's currently the goal that we have. That's the expectation that I have for myself. It's not a lot, but it's where we're at right now. And I think sometimes having, you know, not the highest expectations is also good. Like, sometimes it's good to set the bar to something that's gonna require a bit of effort to get, obviously, but you're not, like, bending over backwards to make it happen. Case in point, I think trying to actually get this, you know, whole batch of stuff painted, at least battle ready, in essentially a little bit over 2 weeks, is maybe one of those, you know, bending over backwards kind of situations that I would say, hey, maybe don't do that. But again, do as I say, not as I do. That old chestnut, of course. I don't make the right decisions, I make the wrong decisions, but I make these decisions publicly so that you can learn from my mistakes, is the copium that I inhale pretty much every day of my life, but especially when I say stuff like this. And like I said, I'm not going to be too broken up either way if I fail at this particular goal. Because the beauty of this is that any effort that we pour towards this highly unlikely but kind of cool goal will also help us achieving help us achieve the goal for Worlds. It's a very interesting way of gluing this together. kind of like clips. Very, very strange. Well, let's see where exactly it wants us to glue. Kind of everywhere. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. It was good to check. And this head was once again easier to build than I thought it would be. And I think it's a little bit like that. Is it gonna grab a hold of itself? Apparently, yes. Oh yeah, I was gonna say there's a gap there. I don't think that's supposed to be like that. There's like tiny gaps in here for sure, but those gaps are a little different because it's basically just, you know, gaps in the little sewn together cloth that he wears. Okay, it's not bad. I've done cleaner things before than that particular build, but it's not bad. So this would be his head. It just goes on like that. Pretty simple. Kind of doesn't really click into place, so I feel like this is one of those things where, you know, we'll have to obviously glue it, because otherwise it just like falls off, but hey, it exists. It exists nonetheless, and it's probably good enough for us to dry fit right now. So I'm not going to glue it in just yet, because if we have to fool around with his shoulders, which, like I said, I'm very much thinking that we're going to have to, then I think it's going to get in the way otherwise. So we're not going to just glue him yet. Now, the big question currently is, do we go and build the feet? Because that would also potentially be helpful a little bit, although it's going to be less helpful than before when we would do that. Mostly because, again, we're not completely certain of the pose. So, as weird as it sounds, I think what we're instead going to do is we're going to build the actual arms. And the reason we're going to build the arms is so that we can actually figure out how the hell we need to cut the shoulders and arms and repose them, so that we have the faintest idea of what we're trying to achieve with it. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I have like an idea of what I want to do with this guy, but I have no concept of how to make it happen and how much cutting is going to involve. And there's a part of me that already kind of feels that just the fact that we built the body in one go will kind of bite us in the ass. Because I think, if I'm correct in my assumptions here, then there's going to be points on this model where we will very much feel like we will need to reposition his legs all the way from like the thighs. And doing that is going to be very, very tough right now. Not impossible, but pretty tough. And it might lead to loss of detail, which can be fixed, by the way, not just by green stuffing it, but by just obscuring it. There's a number of ways we can go about this, and there's no real reason to freak out currently. But it doesn't change the fact that I do feel a little silly for the way that this guy ended up happening, because, yeah, we might indeed get to a point where we'll be like, oh shit, I wish I could reposition the actual thighs much more simply. And if we had just left like the butt off here, basically, if we had sliced these particular pieces off completely and then just green stuff new ones, it would be a whole different ballgame. But this was glued with plastic glue, so this is mostly staying together now in its current shape, which is okay normally, but we'll see. So with all of that in mind, I guess let's start with the Kraken Eater limbs. Now, do these trophies, yeah, they do have some little sprue gates on them. Let's try to get rid of those while they're still attached to the actual rest of the arm. It's easier right now because they're being held by this thing. Another sprue gate over here, huh? That one's tricky. I feel like I will break this thing no matter where I cut this from. So flimsy. Perhaps I'm just like worried about nothing. But yeah. I mean, hey, we were able to remove it. Alright. A little bit of cleanup required there. The rest of it is looking nice. So, as I mentioned, I want to keep these bits. I would like to use them for something else in the future. So I'm slicing this off here. And I'm slicing these off here. So we got two heads on like pieces of rope. One of the heads is facing the wrong way, but that's easily fixable, actually. Gonna put it aside here. We can maybe keep this little, like, knot over here. Yeah, perhaps. We could keep that and then just do the wraps, like, going up that way. That could obviously be a possibility. This might lead to a gap here with me slicing this the way I am currently, but as we established, we'll probably do some green stuff wraps on his like forearm here, basically, just to make it look different. And we're not really looking for this nautical theme on this lad, at least. Not interested in that currently. And right now we're just cleaning up the rest of this arm. These are some good looking, like, fish scales though, for sure. Possibly the best I've seen from GW. It makes sense, this is, you know, a fairly new model, so it's 2 years old, 2021 I want to say is when this came out. Although, no, it's probably 2020. Yeah, 2020, because I bought it on release 2 years and 4 months ago, and it's only January, obviously, so... Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, he has this other talisman-looking thing hanging from this arm. I'm not so into this one. I'm just not that into it. So I'm gonna slice this off, but I'm not cleaning it up, basically. I'm leaving it as it is. I'll keep the bits, because why toss something? You never know, but I don't really see I don't really see myself using these. They're just a tiny rope and like a tiny amulet. Nothing too fancy. The arm itself is going to be important, though. Now, there is a part of me that's considering slicing the top, like the dorsal fins of this fish here. Because again, if we're going to wrap it into anything, and it's definitely not going to look the way it does right now, then we might as well get rid of that. The only thing I'm considering, and I'm curious about that, if we put this together... Yeah, I'm still slicing them off. If it leads to a gap, again, who cares? We'll fill it up / cover it anyway, and I just don't want this to be there. Because we're gonna want to look at the silhouette of the model as we're working on it, and this is a very, very cool piece if you want to be the Kraken Eater nautical style silhouette, but it's not what we want. That's not what we want on this guy. If anything, the current guy that we're working on is going to be just a slightly different looking gatebreaker. Because we've by and large stuck to most of the theming. Even though, and I don't know if I mentioned this before as I was working on these guys, but the whole breaking apart Gargants into various little classes is probably one of the worst aspects of Battletome Sons of Behemoth. It might be a controversial opinion, I'm not sure, but it's definitely the weirdest choice, and they basically only did it because it's a micro faction, and they needed to fill units. If they just would have said, hey, you have one Mega-gargant, and that's it, then obviously people would have been upset. And frankly, rightfully so, because if they release a Battletome with literally 2 units, in this day and age, I think people have a right to be upset. But it did lead to this really, really weird and kind of awkward transitionary period that we have right now, where it's like, apparently any old, relatively aquatic Mega-gargant is considered a Kraken Eater for some reason. And the Gargants, despite the fact that they're described as being vastly independent from one another for the most part, and really only emulating the acts of Behemoth, apparently still group themselves into these. And in fact, in official lore, they refer to themselves with these names. But I think you can excuse that part of it, basically. Because, you know, they just have to call the product the actual product name. Hence why, for example, in the official audio drama, they say Kraken Eater, Gatebreaker, and War Stomper. Like, they just basically use those because it's like, oh, that's what the guys are called right now. But normally, I think they might not even call themselves Mega-gargants. That's a decidedly pipsqueak term, as the Gargants would say. I do think one of the best aspects of Mega-gargant lore is that for the most part, they don't really care about the various differences in these smaller races. Like, to them, a dwarf and an elf are kind of the same because they're both tiny. And that upsets the crap out of all of these races, obviously. And I think that's another reason why the Gargants do it. They're just like, yeah, it pisses them off, so I'm gonna keep doing it. And I find that hilarious. That's exactly how Gargants would do it. Alright, we're gonna glue this together and let it actually cure. We'll go to town on the other arm in the meantime. And once those are done, we might actually glue them on. So that we only, for the dry fitting, we only need to look at the actual head and hold it in place. Now, I can tell you in advance, it's gonna look ridiculous. His base pose, without any of the repositioning we're doing, is gonna look just hideous. It's gonna look bad, it's gonna be awful, but that's okay, it's a work in progress. It's gonna look vastly different once we start slicing him apart. And like I said, we're currently doing this weird thing where we're kind of working like top to bottom, even though normally you'd do it the other way around. And it might still bite us in the ass, doing it like this, but the thing is, I don't have the complete pose in front of me. I haven't decided. It's a weird situation to be in when you have a project that years and years ago you got most of the bits for, and outside of the boat, we've mostly held true to what I basically wanted to do with this project. But right now, we are in uncertain waters, so to speak. We're in the dark right now. But I don't think we have much to worry about, even so. I think overall, there's a chance we can get some good stuff done here. Alrighty. Just gonna try and see how this will look, but still have to do a little bit of cleaning up on it. Put it in the semi-complete pile. And we can look at this other arm, but I'm fairly certain that this is the War Stomper forearm, well, upper arm in this case, rather, that I'm holding. Forearm is still just on the little workstation here. Yeah, the bicep, elbow, and everything seems to line up like that, and it does fit together like that too. So with that in mind, let's clean these 4 pieces and go to town from that point on. We do have the feet to do afterwards as well. But technically speaking, if we were to do that and then maybe look at some of the hands, then we could have a complete model. Now, obviously, we're not going to have a complete model, mostly because of our own decisions. We're basically going to have to do a lot more cutting. But at least soon, we'll see just how much more cutting is actually in store for us. So let's get into it. We've never really used this particular arm up until now, because we had 2 of the other ones. And thankfully the bent arm was actually perfect, as you just saw for Tree Man earlier at the start of the stream, after the WarCom news show. We were able to basically like just reposition it by rotating it around the shoulder, rather than cutting into it in a lot more places. I was actually debating on streaming at all tonight, funnily enough, but the big thing was, I definitely wanted to make progress on my models, and I figured, like, man, like, the only other thing I can imagine doing is I would just work on stuff like I did on Friday, but just not stream. And the reason I didn't go live on Friday, because I didn't know, like, when I would have to leave. I didn't want to come live just for an hour or something. In hindsight, I probably should have, and then I could have just, like, gone the normal amount that I do, but you live and you learn. So basically, I used that learning experience to inform tonight's stream. I was like, hey, if this is like what I'm going to be doing, even though perhaps some more variety would be better, both for my sanity perchance, and maybe that of the viewers, but I don't care, dude. I'm actually having a lot of fun with these guys. Right now, I'm definitely mega-gargant pilled all the way to max. I keep looking for more Sons of Behemoth stuff. I'm pretty sure I've scoured most of Twitter for mega-gargant conversion images. I've definitely looked through everything on Instagram by now, probably twice over. I listened to the audiobook. I have that battle report lined up that I'd like to watch. It's kind of crazy. Like, I feel like we've gotten a little bit obsessed with this project, but in a good way. We're definitely based and gargant-pilled right now. And it's been a while since I've had that with a project, so I'm very happy to be back in that mindset. That little, almost obsessive-compulsive mindset. Perhaps unhealthy, but very conducive to making progress on one of these projects, I would say. And you know, you gotta be a little crazy to build tiny giants, which is a weird concept by itself. Okay, the mold lines on these were not bad at all. Funnily enough, they're gonna need a little bit of extra cleaning. Let's see these wrists. Some pretty big gates, but they come off easy, so that is good. I probably do need like new snips, because I keep mentioning how big these sprue gates are, but it really just comes down to the fact that I can't really go in much closer than I already am. When I think it should be possible, but I just don't have the equipment for it. Alright. This other piece is fairly clean already, from what I can tell. I like the composition of this plastic. It's very workable. Like, even the mold lines that are on there, they have been few and far in between, but fairly easy to clean up after them. I feel like I got a good batch of these lads with the 3 boxes we purchased back in the day. Very, very few complaints so far. Alright, give me just one moment, if you please. Sorry about that. I had to blow my nose. And I will hydrate now. I guess I could have done that while I was muted, but eh. Alrighty. You get the file out and start smoothing these things out a little. No need to go overboard just yet, because we also got to put them together, obviously. But yeah, it's been a while since I've spent so much time just building models. But I've been having a pretty wonderful time. And I'm hoping, you know, you people tuning in are doing the same. I mean, last time we had a dear viewer talk about a lot of various Space Wolf shenanigans that they were up to. It's always a good time, you know. I feel like hobbying together, whether that's in real life or in like a voice call or on stream with somebody, is more fun than just doing it alone. It's a fun solitary activity for sure. And of course you can always put something on in the background, like that's kind of what I'm trying to do here. Maybe I'm your background noise, and I'm very proud if that's the case. But I usually also like have, at least historically, in the past I would have like other streams, maybe a video, a battle report of some kind going basically in the background while I would build some stuff. And even when I'm doing the painting side of things. Right, we missed a little gate there, but I was able to clean it up. Yeah, again, this is gonna be once we smooth, like, we don't need to go crazy on smoothing things out with our file, because a lot of this I think is gonna be covered later, but also we would more so want these things to be attached to one another, rather than just be smoothed out on the surface here. But of course we'll see how that actually ends up going. Alrighty. Let me open this thing back up. Closed it for some reason, but now we're back. Interestingly enough, it's actually over here that we need to look at it. Okay. Fairly self-explanatory, but sometimes it's good to look at the instructions anyway. We nearly thought this was a different arm, so I feel like, you know, sometimes it's helpful to validate what you're actually looking at. And I'm very excited to see how this will all fit together in the dry fitting stage. Currently I'm painting my Magma-Droth. Oh yeah, you're working on the second one, I think you mentioned. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. The first one looks really, really good, and it's apparently also pretty much a beast on the tabletop. So I feel like having a second is going to improve things for the Fire Slayers. But I feel like Fire Slayers are going to be really, really good this season due to the Galician, or Galician, I don't know how the hell they pronounce it in that one video on WarCom. But yeah, the GCs are going to be doing real good. The GC rules for Fire Slayers. Of course, Magmadroth heroes are not going to benefit from that, but all the other foot stuff, all the other priests, the battlesmiths, stuff like that, they're going to like be very important for scoring, for example. And you can also get the aspect of champions, basically, which are really good buffs just in general. Things are looking up for Fire Slayers. And I don't think they were bad before. Fire Slayers have always been this interesting kind of like middle ground, where I don't think they've ever really been bad. It doesn't really feel like in my mind that they've had like a bad set of rules. It's more so that like design-wise, and because it's kind of a micro-faction, they tend to be like pretty unpopular. You're either into the kind of Slayer-inspired design or you're not. It's very polarizing. I just read it, it's whole base. All of the Agrellan Earth started to fall off when I started to paint it. Oh, that's rough. That's rough. Was there maybe like some mold release or something on the base? Did you handle it with like greasy fingers? Because I've had that happen when paint doesn't want to stick to something. During our last painting workshop, if you remember, I had that problem with the dice tower at the top with the little spider. Maybe. Yeah, possibly. In my case, I'm pretty sure that that's what happened with the dice tower that I got. Because I would constantly grab it there, so it makes the most sense that it would have like the largest buildup of like skin oil. Even if I didn't like touch it with like, you know, like messed up like fingers from like food or whatever, which I don't think I did, not intentionally. But just like skin oil repulses, you know, like paint pretty well, as it turns out. Have multiple spare big bases. Yeah, you build them up over time, obviously. I think past a certain point, it's very normal to have like a giant collection of bases and bits in this hobby, for sure. Alright, let's actually use the rest of our glue to get this wrist together. And I mean, we might just glue it also to the upper arm while we're here. I don't see why we wouldn't. And this new season of AOS is definitely going to be interesting with GCs. I'm very, very excited to see like which way the meta goes. It's going to be half a year of GCs, obviously. We know that much because that's basically how the system works currently. But yeah, I'm going to be curious which army that has access to GCs is going to come out on top. If there's going to be any kind of sleeper hits with that. Although I think there's some classics that will always be like at the top of the heap. It's hard to imagine any set of rules not benefiting Seraphon in some way, for example. They just have literally all the tricks that you could ever want/need in this game up their sleeves constantly, so it's very difficult to write any rules that don't benefit the crazy magic Blizzard people. Perhaps Disciples of Tzeentch will also come back in like a relatively big way, but I'm a little uncertain about that, to be honest, because they have I think other issues that may not be like fixed just by making their heroes better for scoring. There we go, that's how it actually clicks into place. It's a pretty handsome, nice looking arm for sure. I guess the question is, do we want to glue both of the arms onto the actual body? But probably not. I'd say probably not. Just wait with it for the time being, I think. Let's just have these things set along with the actual head. We still gotta do a little bit of filing to get rid of some of the actual contact locations. And I mean, we could build the feet. We've built the feet a lot before, but it's time once again. I am once again asking for your feet ankle support. I don't know. Look, they're not all gonna be winners. Let me see. Yep, let's start working on these feet. He's gonna need them eventually. Perhaps a little later than normal, but that doesn't mean he's not gonna need them. It's a pretty big part of these models, the feet. Not just in terms of size, but definitely in terms of theming. Sons of Behemoth sure love stomping things, but I mean, hey, if you were a giant creature, I feel like you would enjoy stomping things too. Stands to reason, I would say. And the feet do have some really nice detail. We've mentioned before during our builds that they definitely added enough detail to a lot of this skin where it works with the new, well, not really new anymore, but the newish contrast style painting, for example. You can use shades liberally on these models, and it will actually like find a ton of detail to go into. Dry brushing is gonna like obviously look fantastic on these lads as well. They're just really good kit. I mean, one of the pieces of detail that I don't see people mention, which I personally find weird as someone that has historically worked with the Man Crushers, well, they got renamed to Man Crushers, but Ale Guzzlers / classic Warhammer Giant minis, is every single finger has a fingerprint. They made a fingerprint for all of the fingers. Even the ones that are not particularly visible. That's frankly insane, and it's not something they needed to do. Like, it's great attention to detail that they did. And the fact that they considered that, yes, a model of this size, a person of this size would have, like, a very visible, fingerprint. But it is insane when you think about it. Like, old giants didn't have that. The classic Warhammer Giant, aka Ale Guzzler, aka Man Crusher, just has big old potato hands. And they look good enough, don't get me wrong. Like, maybe not good enough from today's day and age. Hey, Lurie, welcome in. How are you doing? But yeah, so these guys actually have their fingerprints, like, built properly. The toe prints don't exist, but mostly because the toes are supposed to go on the plastic base underneath, so it makes sense. I was gonna say I thought I cleaned this already, but apparently not. What's up, Lurie? It's been a long time. Fancy seeing you here, as some will say. He's got such nasty looking, like, heels, dude. Just completely, like, broken up and just chaffed. Almost like he walks barefoot through, like, a fantasy world or something. Incredible. Doing very not good, but, kind of been normal like that. Yeah, unfortunately, I feel like the last couple of times I've asked you this question, it's been mostly the same answer like that. And I'm sorry to hear that still, by the way. I think I still know the details. If I think, like, I'm pretty sure it's still, like, your living situation, right? Hopefully things will get better soon. Probably have gotten this, like, little mold line off of all of the other feet up until now, but it's very weird to like, notice it as I'm holding this now. It's in an awkward location. Yeah, and I'm sick right now, so, I mean, of course, you're a sick gamer, obviously. No, I know what you mean. I hope you get better soon. A lot of people I know are struggling with various illnesses, unfortunately. It's like, this is the season for this stuff. It would appear. So that's one giant foot kind of built, still in pieces, but, it's a little bit like a lot of our lives right now. Just in pieces, but it's a work in progress. At least we can hang our hat on that. And then we can move on to the other foot. Man, I really do wonder if maybe I got some new clippers, I would be able to get these slices a little better and closer in there so I have less to clean up. I don't know if I want to make that investment though. The Citadel tools are so expensive, especially the new batch. I haven't dared look at the price tag on, like, the new clippers. I just know they exist. But beside that and everything being awful, I did some new art, did a redraw, and I'm happy with it, so that's good. I mean, hey, that's always good. I saw you also got into Apex recently. I think I caught, like, 1 or 2 streams of that, although I just lurked in one of them. I just, like, joined in, saw some classic Apex gameplay, and I've never played the game, but I've watched plenty of content. I've seen some like, professional play on it, I've seen some unprofessional play on it. and it's not bad. It's not bad for sure, but I have not much to interact with basically. So I just like looking at the flashing colors. Oh boy, I'm addicted. Elp. No elpers. No elpers. Just be addicted to Apex and stream it. It's fine. Turn it into content. If you're addicted to something, I'm addicted to building plastic models now, so just make that the content. Become the #1 Apex streamer. Just start, like, transition into... Does Apex historically have, like, e-girls? Like, you know, people that just never stop saying uwu and like, constantly try to recruit people into their Discord and have people give them, like, valuable shields? Like, just become that person. Just become the Apex Predator. Of course. Yeah, just become that person. I mean, honestly, I feel like maybe Apex is just like a little better than Genshin, you know? Like, this is an improvement over your usual content. Not a big improvement, don't get the wrong idea, but it might be an improvement. It is hilarious that, like, I genuinely watch your streams, but you play all of the games that I have, like, no idea about. Like, when I would tune in and you were playing Genshin, I would have no concept of what's going on. I would just see pretty anime people, like, literally flashing their ass. And I'm like, is this Genshin? Is this why people play this? There's a 9-year-old looking anime girl, like, flashing me her panties right now as she's, like, paragliding in a jungle. And I'm like, this is peak content, apparently. Like, I never knew this is what I was missing from my life. I'm sure it's a good game, like, once you actually know what's going on, but... There's so much stuff, dude. There's, like, zones and quests and 57 million characters and gambling, and I'm like, most of the MMOs I play, you just make your character, you select, like, 1/2 classes, and you just cast Fireball at people, or hit them with a sharp stick. Like, Western MMOs are brain dead compared to Genshin from the looks of it. It definitely feels like Guild Wars, like the old Guild Wars and World of Warcraft, is more suited to my IQ. As someone with subhuman IQ numbers, the brain-dead MMOs seem a lot more easy to understand for me. I mean, Apex is also kind of similar, though. It's got so much shit going on in it. I'm sure if I got into it, it could be fun. But I've never really had the inclination to try. The whole Battle Royale thing, for me, is like a new development, even though it's been in the ether for a long time. It's a really, really cool, like, core game concept. It's just, I've never really played any Battle Royales. I'm trying to, like, think, but I don't think I've tried any of them. I don't hate the idea. In fact, I think it's one of the best ways of going about, like, a multiplayer-style game. And it definitely makes the endless replayability so much more accessible to everybody, but it just came after I was mostly, you know, done playing multiplayer shooter stuff. Like, for me, I guess the big craze was TF2 back in the day, which is more class-based arena shooter elements, basically. Very, very different beast, obviously. Although I will say TF2 was definitely, at least with stock weapons, and most stuff enabled, even unlockables, but especially random crits enabled, it's definitely very, like, beginner and casual friendly, I would say. In the same vein as in Apex, you know, you can open a chest and get, like, a super valuable weapon, which might give you a chance against a professional with a much worse firearm. In TF2, there's always, like, at least on the normal servers, where, you know, random crits are enabled, there's always a chance that you'll just randomly crit when you hit someone, where you, like, fire at someone. So as long as your accuracy isn't total dog water, there's a pretty good chance that, you know, you can one-shot someone or get a kill on them, even if they're vastly better than you. Which is good. That's a mechanic you want to have for casuals, because if it's purely skill-based, then new people will never play, because they'll just keep getting killed, and they'll lose, like, any inclination to play the game. This is something nobody wants to talk about, but nobody likes losing, actually. And I'm kind of tired of people pretending that they do. The Dwarf Fortress community is different, I'll give them that. The Dwarf Fortress community and the person that made the game are, like, the one exception to the rule, because they're actually crazy, and I love them for it, but that's also different because it's a single-player kind of PvE style game, so it's not really losing, you know? But in, like, a multiplayer setting, obviously you want to win. So anything that gets you even a very unfair chance of winning is very welcome, I think. And so, you know, you got stuff like that in Apex. And a ton of other games have a lot of random elements, for better or worse. I'm not above pretending that those are necessary. There was a part of me back in the day that would deny that stuff. Hell, I remember I had like a... And I mean, Ren might remember this as well, because we had the conversation in real life about this back in the day. But I had like a big, not like nervous breakdown, but like a big emotional... Again, maybe breakdown's too strong of a word, but like a huge, like, internal, like, monologue with myself, and then like conversations with people about just letting people win at like tabletop stuff. Because I used to run a tabletop gaming store, and you know, when you run demos, like, people would often win, but normally I didn't throw those games. They won on their own merits, basically, or at least that's how I made myself believe it worked, even though I kind of... Wait, what, you did? Oh, yeah, I had my own business for like 4 years. I had like my tabletop gaming store where I sold like Warhammer stuff. I closed it a little bit before COVID, but it was basically going from 2016 to 2020. But yeah, so originally I had this thing where I never wanted to let people win, because I thought like, holy shit, aren't you like, I don't know, 13? I mean, hey, you know, you gotta start pretty early on, you know? I worked in the mines when I was like 7 years old to get enough money to be able to open my store, and then I opened my store when I was 11 years old, and now actually I'm 14. It's wonderful, right? It's the Zoomer, you know, grind set that I'm on personally. I mean, I feel like with my internet references, though, most people kind of understand that I'm definitely millennial. I think I you know, pepper a couple Zoomerisms in there because I genuinely think some of them are funny. But no, I'm almost 30 actually. It's insane. I'm gonna be 30 next year. I just turned 29 actually, just like 20 days ago. I'm old. I gotta get like, I don't even know, dude. Maybe like a walking aid. I think just a cane would be okay. I do look very young, but that's also because I keep going clean-shaven. I much prefer to look clean-shaven than actually grow out a beard. I just grow patchy beards as well. I just don't think it's a look that really suits me. A lot of people I know have like good beards, and they can grow good beards. I'm not one of them, and I would rather respect the beard and not try to make like a mockery of it by growing something. I'll do like No Shave November and embarrass myself just like I did last year, but that's as far as I'm willing to go. I do wonder if my glue is going to want to cooperate with me at any point during this conversation here. I feel like it has like a clear path through the nozzle, but right now it doesn't really want to show up yet. It should be, everything should be in order. Sometimes you just gotta threaten it though. Maybe I'll have to burn it again. You know what, I'm not even gonna just wait with the threatening, I'm just gonna do it immediately. Well, there was nothing in there at least. If it's further down, we're kind of boned, as it turns out. So we'll see in a second. It is like the last little bit of glue in this pack, so I have some others that I could grab. I'm pretty sure, at least. Usually I have reserves. Pretty well prepared like that. Alright, sir, would you like to maybe travel down the length of this metal nozzle and then pour out the other end so that I may actually glue these pieces together? You see, once you describe it like that to the glue, it actually is willing to work with you. Maybe you thought I had some other nefarious purpose in mind for it. But no, I just want to use it as intended, you know? I just want to glue two pieces of thing together. Now it has fallen. Oh no. Alright, that might not be the end of the world anyway. It has nudged our nozzle farther in, which is not ideal. Every single day that I spend building these models, I get closer and closer to wanting to get my hands on the Tamiya plastic cement stuff. Because that stuff has like a little brush like application method, and it's just a huge batch of glue. It seems so much fun to use. It probably has its own issues, but because I've never tried it, I don't have to worry about that. So I know you're into hands, Lurie, but if you're still here, what do you think about feet? Are you into feet? Look at these gnarly little grippers, these gamer grippers. Big feet. And you know what they say about a man with big feet? Big shoes. You know what they say about a man with big shoes? You might have to have them custom made. And you know what they say about a man who has to have his shoes custom made? He spends more money on his shoes. And you know what they say about a man that spends more money on his shoes? He probably can't afford food. Alright, I don't know where this is going, by the way. I just wanted to keep it going for an extended length of time. I didn't have any end goal in mind with that. Oh no, not the fish fins that we sliced off. Anything but that. Alright, let's file these arms down. These meaty fucking arms. Don't actually need to do a lot with these from the looks of it. It's kind of an interesting little piece. I guess it makes more sense if you look at it from the angle that it's supposed to be in. That actually makes it a lot more understandable what it's trying to be and do, actually. Yeah, this will just need to be like gap-filled normally. Kind of hid the attachment points pretty nicely, like among the muscle groups. Not bad. Not a bad job, whoever made this model. I will say it's a good kit. It's definitely a good kit, like high quality. Pretty fun to work with overall, I would say. 7 out of 10, you know? No, but it's actually solid. Let's see the other arm, because we do need to smooth out a few things here. They didn't hide the various like attachment spots in actual muscle groups here. He just has like a line running down the kind of back of his arm, basically. It's relatively well hidden because of the position, but that is not so applicable for us, because as I mentioned, this might get rotated. His entire shoulder might get sliced off and repositioned, because we want to do something vastly different. And of course, we already cut off a bunch of little dangly bits from his arm here. He had like some amulets and stuff, which, because again, we might be changing the final position of this, I just decided to cut away. It didn't make sense to keep him. Not in that position. We also sliced off the fins from this little like fish skin thing that he has as like a bracelet. Mostly because like this is a nautical themed guy, and the guy that we're working on is actually supposed to be more like a siege obsessed dude. So we're probably going to cover that up later with some modeling putty, maybe glue on a bunch of shields for some improvised armor. It's going to be a good time, but that's later down the line. That's going to be the detailing phase, which again I might do on all of the models together. Very high chance of that happening, actually, in the name of efficiency. And also I will need to get out a bunch of more plastic bits that I don't right now have like just out on the table behind me. Because I have a lot of the other like giant bits, such as like a dead / like tied up cow. It depends on, I guess, how you paint it. That could be a lot of fun to put on one of these guys. Some water skins, like a bag that has like 2 or 3 people in it. That's a lot of fun for a giant to have. So that is all probably going to get added to these lads. Just later. A little bit later. Okay, this is looking relatively promising. I mean, we're obviously going to have to do like some more gap filling. There's, you know, no two ways about it, but we'll do our best. We'll do our best. If we can get rid of these mold lines and gaps without that, that's even better. Future us will be very thankful. And it seems like we've mostly been able to succeed at that, but we will come back with probably like a mix of water and PVA, which, by the way, is not the best gap filling like solution. If you want to be super specific about what to call it, I guess it is a solution of water and like PVA glue, wood glue essentially, because it does shrink, but it can be kind of good nonetheless. For really tiny gaps is pretty good, and we can minimize the size of the gaps as we're doing right now. So he's got his 2 arms. The thing I'm curious about is how this will look if we actually glue these on now, because it's probably going to look really goofy. It's not going to resemble any kind of proper pose, but it is 2 outstretched arms, and I kind of want to see how they are all set up there. And mostly because we're planning on keeping the arms outstretched the way they are, but just repositioning them, probably from the shoulder. Yeah, I mean, most likely from the shoulder. Dude, this guy's gonna need a lot of repositioning, if I had to guess. Let's see. Do we glue these on and then just, like, think about cutting the shoulders off completely? I think that's gonna have to be the case. Because this current position just looks dumb, for sure. But I mean, hey, I can glue it in, and then you can revel in how dumb it looks. It's gonna look like he's, like, skipping through the Forest of Wonders or something. I feel like this probably is easier to glue, like the actual arm, instead of the rest of the body to the arm. So let's go with that. Let's make that happen, if at all possible. Yeah, I don't really see like how else we would work these things together into one bit, other than the gap filling that I've already mentioned. So for the time being, we're just gonna get the glue out and get it all slathered on. And just attach it real quick like. So that's right arm attached. The right arm of the Forbidden One, if you will. And we can also, while the glue is still cooperating with us, actually glue on the left as well. And then I'll show him to the camera so that you can revel in his glory. Skipping through the forest of amazement and wonder. He also has no hands currently, but, you know, that's fine. At least he can say, look ma, no hands. But yeah, it looks like he's dancing. Like, look at this. So I need to hold the head in place right now because I haven't glued that in. He's kind of just like dancing. If you actually imagine the feet on there and they had the right position, it looks like he's kind of sliding along the floor. If he had like a shouty head, I think it would be even better because it would look like he's singing on like a Disney movie. You can just imagine like a giant doing a Disney song. What a dreadful thought. But yeah, this position is just not good for what we need, obviously. It's also just not good for anything. Like, there's a reason why most people don't build the Gargant with these arms, because it just makes no sense. So, yeah. But at least those are on there. And I mean, if we have to slice the shoulders off, then it's good that we were able to attach these. The other thing to consider, and this is something I wanted to look at, I had this idea earlier, but I'm not, like, super certain about it, of maybe, because normally the left foot, like his entire left leg / left foot is the one that's more forward, and his left foot is completely flat along the ground. So that's his like stable foot in like the motion that is captured by the model. Whereas, and I mean we can also show this like on here. So you'll notice this is his right foot. It's kind of flexing. It's being lifted off of the ground. It's done really well, by the way. Like it's actually like fairly nice how he like arches that. Very believable, like anatomically correct, just scaled up to like a giant size, obviously. But I was thinking, because we've operated on a bunch of these feet before, that perhaps we could also make this one flat to the floor and have like his weight be on his right foot instead. Because if we want to make him look kind of like he's spinning around, then that would be like a really easy and fun way to do it, I think. It would look interesting for sure. Certainly look interesting. We'd probably need to bend like his loincloth. Yeah, like the entirety of his loincloth with like a heat gun or just like a hairdryer, because his gravity right now doesn't really apply to it from the looks of it. So that's something that we would have to consider. But that is something to do, and it would be a fairly different pose, to be sure. And not that difficult to make. I guess the big question would be like what kind of a position we really want to do with him. And that's the tough question here, because the only thing that I have decided about this guy is that I want him to have like a chain weapon, but it's more so going to be a rope weapon with a thing at the end. So right now we need to wait until these arms cure a little bit, because if we start slicing off and we break them off, it's going to be more awkward, it's going to be hard to repair them and glue them back, so it's not going to be a whole lot of fun. we've already done the feet, and I don't really want to glue them in place, because in the event that we need to operate on the feet themselves, it's going to be so much easier to do when they're separate pieces. And like I said, there's a high chance that we'll have to do that. The big thing about this guy currently is he's probably going to be the most involved in terms of modifying the base model, because the position that we have in mind, the whole spinning a giant thing around him, is the most different from any of the other positions. Like, keep in mind, he has like a base pose of just kind of stumbling forward depending on where you put his neck, like which head you use. And we were able to exaggerate a lot of stuff with that in the past. So the first guy we built, Running Man, he just looks believable because all we have to do was exaggerate the motion of the legs by cutting them apart a little bit. Like, he actually looks like he's running forward. The broken mass that he's holding adds to the whole momentum-based thing. We moved the little bell around on it so it looks like it's affected by gravity. And it just looks like a normal running pose. We were able to just, exaggerate the base pose into this. In a similar vein, we were able to kind of use the basic position of the model on Tree Man / Gangsta Lean Man, who's still not fully built, obviously, but he's gonna have a giant tree like this. And you can also see the base position modified slightly there. So what we just did basically is we moved both of the legs so that he's kind of like shifting his weight around on his feet. Because he's carrying a giant heavy object, it makes sense that he wouldn't be standing up straight completely. And the arm hanging back doesn't look too unbelievable. Like, from a straight head-on profile, it actually looks kind of like he's striding, maybe taking a break from like walking a lot. It looks fairly good. And we just had to cut like a thing out of his hand basically to make it look like his other arm is available to hold the tree if he, gets it off of his shoulder. But these were easy compared to what we're doing now. Interestingly enough, they still involved a lot of cutting, but still easier than what we're doing currently. And that's okay, that's not really a complaint, that's more something to be realistic about. It is hilarious to imagine that you can just like make like a jazz sliding, dancing, singing man. That's what this position reminds me of, at least. Like, I can't imagine what song he would be singing, but he would definitely be singing a song, like a Broadway musical type of number, That's the vibe I'm getting. So, if you'll give me but one moment, I'll go and grab one thing that we will need for this, and we might as well get started on it, in the name of efficiency, like while everything else is curing, rather than just sit here and talk, we can just continue bashing plastic. I don't think I'll put on the BRB screen because I think I'll be gone for like literally a minute, so just hold on to your butts, I shall be right back. Let's see. I am back. I have returned. I didn't find what I was looking for, but I found other stuff. And one of them I do want to check on. Because I bought an entire terrain kit for just a handful of bits, some of which might be useful for us in just a second. But the big piece that I got this from, this is the Azerite Ruined Chapel, in case you're curious about the name. I've used a section of wall from here, in another gentleman here, one of the Man Crushers. Ignore his obviously badly painted skin. I was just trying out like various methods of application. but he's holding this wall section, and it looks cool. He's about to throw it at you. But the big reason why I bought this is not for that. The big reason is the bell. So the original thought that I had for this guy that we're working on, and we might actually go down this path as well, just to put the bell on his head, because it would look funny. And yes, I genuinely bought an entire, like, watchtower kit for a bell and a piece of wall. And no, like, you don't have to ask, and you don't get to ask about my sanity. That just don't. It's not worth getting into. And I mean, now that we have the head built, we can actually take a look at the size of the bell in comparison to the head, because that is something that I've not really been able to check before. So I'm just gonna slice half of the bell off and look at it. Oh yeah, we absolutely could, like, put this on his head, and it would look hilarious. We could even just leave the hood on. That's the big thing I was considering, like, do we want to have the hood on or the hood off? But I think we might give him the bell helmet. The way I would want to do it, and this was, again, we keep circling back to the same few topics, I guess, but in TF2, you probably have seen the soldier's design, where he's wearing the helmet, but it mostly covers his eyes. In fact, it covers his eyes completely, and it's more so, like, you can see the chin. He's kind of got, like, a... Oh, what is it? Why am I blanking on it? A Judge Dredd type of thing going on, a little bit. And I was kind of inspired by that for this conversion, where I was like, we could do that for a giant with a bell, actually. We could totally just have his chin game be shown off and just cover the rest of his head. So I just, like, sliced this bell off right now. We genuinely don't need the rest of the sprue currently. We just need to clean this up. And a big part of the cleanup is going to be figuring out how exactly we're going to remove it from... Because we don't want this wooden beam, like, we don't want that to be on top of it. It kind of takes away from the silhouette. So we need to cut away a little bit more. This side is already good enough. This side is doing great work. It's the other bit that we've sliced away that needs a little bit of attention. So let's see. Part of me is very tempted to get the saw out for this, because it's just straight slicing. Like, looking at it right now, it's just straight slices, not much to be worried about. Pretty thick plastic. Yeah, it just makes sense. It just makes sense to actually use a saw for this. It does not make sense to spend a lot of time trying to cut through with a hobby knife and break a lot of bits, lose more material, when we can just literally saw through it. So let's instead do that. Let's immediately get into that. Put on our nice little saw blade here. This one has seen quite a lot of work over the last couple of weeks, as it turns out. And I'm going to start off trying to free this side first. But yeah, this is what I mean. Like, you can clearly see that I've thought a lot about these conversions over 2 years ago, the modifications that I want to do. I very much considered what I wanted to achieve, except for the pose, which is kind of a very important part of this model, and it's all just like, I'll figure it out when we get closer to it. Which is not a bad attitude to have, normally, except now, you know, that little blunder by past me, unfortunately, is really bothering present me, because future me turned into present me, and it has given me a little bit of a headache. And not because of the timey-wimey bullshit, but more so because I do need to figure it out now, and I still don't know. So we're just gonna work on a bunch of other stuff until it's time to slice the shoulders off and rebuild them. And then I think once we figure that out, it's all gonna, you know, become much easier. I also have another box here with me. I got a box of the Mega-gargants, the 2-kit, the dual kit that came out over 2 years ago. I think now they sell them, either you can get one guy or you can get like a triplet of dudes. And they're probably more expensive than the ones I got. I mean, we can literally check, I think. If we're very curious. It's probably like more expensive now than it was 2 years ago, because that's normally how it goes. But I want to see, because this thing is filled to the brim with frames, and I don't think normally it's this full. So I'm just very curious what's in here. It does mean, unfortunately, the one bit that I wanted to find I wasn't able to locate just now, and I think I know why, but I just didn't feel like diving into my closet any further. So for the time being, I've postponed that. And instead we'll work on these bits, look at some of the additional plastic pieces we have in this box next to me that I just rescued from the heap. And we'll see what we can get our hands on. And if I need to, then I'll put the BRB screen, maybe turn the music up louder, and take the time trying to find the actual piece that we would like. Because eventually we're going to need to find it, and I know that I did buy it, and I know that it's in there. I think I know where it is. It's just awkward to get to, and like right now, in under a minute, I just like looked in the place that I thought it was in, found a bunch of other stuff, and I was like, oh cool, we can already do some stuff with that, so let's do that. So we'll build this bell first. And I mean, we'll probably look at the rest of the chapel sprue, because it has some broken masonry that we could use. Because a lot of these giants have ranged attacks in-game, so they get to throw rocks at people and stuff. And I'd like to represent that by putting some stuff on their bases. It also helps sell the scale of the models. If you have like broken, you know, like wall sections or anything, like pieces of an actual building really show how tall these guys are supposed to be in the universe of the game, basically. And again, stuff like this bell basically being used as a helmet will also help a lot with that. Plus, it would look really, really funny. And I mean, we've established that the man has like a chin to die for, so we might as well do our best with that. I'm trying to see if maybe I missed some mold lines on his chin, but if I did, we'll clean those up after. Right now, it's a very nice, patient game of saw through the plastic wooden beam, which sounds weird, but trust me, it's not that weird in the grand scheme of things. We're like halfway through. We could go a little bit harder on it, but I just don't want to deal more damage to the actual top of the bell. I'm not against the battle damage on it, to be honest. It's more so that it's going to look less like battle damage and more like you tried to saw something off from up above it, right? Oh, the one side of it is almost done, though. So there is hope yet. There's hope yet that we will succeed here. Of course, the alternate option would be to literally like slice away all of these support pieces that would put the bell in place and just like put it on there. And it might come to that anyway in the end. But I want to give myself the option of not having to slice them off. But we'll see. We'll see. I think it's gonna look fantastic. This man with a bell on his head. And then, you know, he can be Bellman. Because our naming conventions are top tier. Alright, we're actually halfway through now. And I think done on one side. So I'll try to focus more on the upper part of this wooden beam. Oh, here's some nice funky noises. Might be making some breakthroughs. Let me move this a little. Ignore the earthquake shakes that you might be seeing on camera. That's just me sawing, don't worry. You'll know it's an earthquake because I'll start screaming and shouting. Alright, I think we're on a roll now. Yep, we have successfully sliced this thing. So, question now becomes, can we just rescue this by doing something like that and not stabbing ourselves with a saw? It's hard to stab yourself with a saw, to be fair, so I was not too worried. And let's see, maybe on this other side as well. Alright, so one side is almost fully free. We just need to make a similar cut. Technically it might be two, but we'll figure that out. Yeah, so let's go over here. And then we'll clean it up. The rest of it I think we can do with just the hobby knife. It should be totally fine. Let us see. So far nothing has broken off that we didn't want to break off, so that's pretty good. Ideal situation. And we're just gonna keep on trucking. I'm very curious about all the plastic sprues that we have in this box next to me. I must have collected a bunch of stuff in here. We'll check it out. But first, we'll definitely clean the bell up. Because I very, very much want to see how this will look like once it's fully clean, just on his head as like a helmet. I remember like really debating buying this particular kit literally just for the bell, and I was very happy when I was able to use the wall sections for that one conversion I showed you earlier. And like I said, the rubble is going to be useful too, so it was an investment. You see, it was all worth it. How expensive was it? Don't worry about that part, it's fine. You don't need to know. I remember I poured a lot of fucking money into this army, and I never did anything with it for over 2 years. That's the sad part. That's why we gotta make it right. That's why we gotta do better and improve. And actually make it into an army that looks glorious. Also an army that's made up of essentially 4 guys by the end of it, but, you know, it's considered an army in game rules, so I think I'm allowed legally to refer to it as such at that point, right? Still need to do a little bit more light cutting and actually go through here. I mean, honestly, if I was a giant, I probably would wear a bell on my head. Like these old church bells, bro. They're like crazy well constructed. These things would never break. Can't remember if these were tested by just like throwing them off of the church tower that they were supposed to be on. But I'm pretty sure that's how they did like the quality testing in medieval times. They'd make the church bell, and then, you know, people would be like, oh, but this is gonna get hit like 32 times every single day. Do you think it can withstand that? And then the blacksmith would literally just like, you know, like knock it off the side of the fucking building and like crash it into the ground, cause a crater and a giant mess, and the bell would still be pristine and be like, yeah, I'm thinking it'll handle like 78 years of being hit every day 32 times. I'm pretty sure it can take that. Now about my payment. Imagine being that blacksmith though, like that must be the most baller fucking thing you can do. Just like knock over a bell to prove that it's like well constructed and be like, yeah, fucking pay me now, bitch. I did my job. Now you do your part and give me the gold coins. Man, blacksmithing is fucking cool, by the way. It's just cool in general. There are very few like blacksmith characters in novels and other fictional worlds that aren't inherently cool. And I can't really think of one off the top of my head, which again just proves that they're just inherently cool. It's an archetype that's very hard to mess up. Old blacksmiths are good, is basically what I'm trying to say. This is completely unrelated, a little bit of a self-doxler, but this is unrelated to the fact that my family name is essentially Smith. Obviously completely unrelated to my opinion about blacksmiths, clearly. Clearly it has nothing to do with it, by the way, and honestly, I'm offended that you would think that it has anything to do with it. Like, how dare you? How very dare you? Nice, nice, we can just like clip it off now. Clip it and ship it. Okay. It's a right mess, but it no longer has those wooden beams. Oh no, I lost one of them. I was just inspecting them to see if maybe there's something we can use. But I don't know, they seem pretty badly damaged. Almost like I sawed through them or something. Okay. Let's continue slicing away. Takes considerable amount of strength and effort to cut away at these, which is why I wanted to do it the way that I did it with the saw, to be honest. It's just thick plastic, is what it is. There's an argument to be made that we should still like saw this particular piece, but I'm gonna be optimistic and just go for it with raw strength right here. We've nailed the actual angle of it, so I think we're gonna be okay. Some of it is already coming loose. Alright. So I need to slice a little bit more here. Let's see. So I want to go in a little bit as well. There's like 2 pieces, because this one at the back, I guess we could keep it like that, but it just doesn't look that nice. I think it would look nicer if we got those little pieces from in between out, because those would normally also be attached to the wooden beams. Let's see. Yeah, I would say that those would not be there. It's gonna add some negative space to the bell, like the top part as well, which I think will make it overall more interesting. Just a little bit finicky to cut. Yeah, so we'll have to slice through one more time. Nice, nice, that's much better. Let's do it again. Mostly cut through right there. Alright, so we've liberated it completely. Still need to do like a bunch of cleaning up, obviously, but this is essentially what we were trying to do. If you notice, like at the top of the bell there, the structure that we would use to attach it to like a wooden beam so that it would swing is mostly kept intact. It kind of looks like a crown as well, which is a nice little plus. I feel like that would appeal to a giant. He's probably seen some you know, pipsqueaks wearing crowns before and been like, oh, that's fancy. He's got like horns poking up and whatnot. I could see why they respect him. But how am I gonna get something like that? Because I am way too big. And then he saw the church bell and he was like, hold on a minute. I got an idea. Oh, giants. So smart. In their own way, really. Gonna need a lot of smoothing out on this though. We did some violent cuts and sawing. But once it's cleaned up though, it's gonna look real nice. I don't think we need to clean that particular side of it. Yeah, because that's gonna be essentially fully covered. Okay, so now I'm just gonna get rid of the sprue gates that we had all over here. Along the side. It's surprisingly thin plastic for the actual rest of the bell itself. A little bit of shoddy construction. Maybe this one wouldn't have survived like an entire fall from a church tower. But who knows? It doesn't have to, because it's just going to be a helmet now. Oh, and there's actually no... Of course there's no like mold lines on here, because this was actually attached in all sorts of other places. I'm just pleasantly surprised. Should clean this as well at the top, although we'll probably like get around to cleaning it in a second too. I am immediately going to grab the nail file and already smooth out some of these places that we were working on before. But we'll do a lot more of this once it's all like glued together. That's the plan anyway. Now, I could be silly, but like I said, I'm pretty sure most of these church bell looking things would be cast as one piece. And then basically what they would do, if it's the same deal as with a cannon, which I believe was the case, then they would bore out the center for maximum structural integrity. Which makes sense, because in the case of a cannon, you're going to be putting black powder and projectiles in there. You want that bastard to be like as durable as humanly possible. And as we mentioned, the bell also gets like pretty frequent use, getting pummeled by all sorts of various things, whether that's a monk with a hammer or some automated system, or both, I suppose. Sometimes, you know, you have a power outage with your automated bell hitting system Areno. So I think the way this would work is normally they would bore out the center, basically. They'd make the basic shape, and then they'd waste a lot of material just like boring it out with a wooden like beam or something. I think I saw like a cannon construction video that showed something like that for cannons at least. But perhaps I'm very wrong about the actual bells. I'm not going to look it up, I'm too lazy. If you want to Google that for me, more than welcome to. Yeah, this is clogged. A little clogged, but we fixed it. And now it's time to glue it. We're gonna have to wait for this to cure as well, which is actually completely fine because we have all these bits to look through. And if all else fails, I'll go back and do some more closet diving and try to find that one kit. I'm fairly certain, like 99.9% certain, that I know where it's at. It's just behind 2 other boxes. But when I was in the closet, I didn't remember. But now that I've sat down, had some time to think/talk about it, I'm fairly certain that I know. I no longer lack critical information. In fact, I possess all the necessary information. I mean, we're immediately gonna see how this dry fits, because I'm very, very curious. Let's see. Nice, nice. Come on now, buddy. Actually click like that. There you go. I knew you wanted it. Oh yeah, this looks fantastic, by the way. I love this little bell. Now let's see what it's like on his head. So this is just his basic head. And now if we put this on, oh my god, I love it. I want to have his smile show. I really want his like chin and smile to show up still, ideally. Let me like tilt him slightly. You can still have like the hood on, I think. I don't know, but that looks so funny to me. I love it. We can like tilt it to one side maybe to make it look more like less deliberate, I guess, and more like haphazard, but yeah, I'm pretty sure we'll do this because it just looks fucking hilarious to me, dude. Like, I don't know about you, but that really appeals to me. Oh, that looks so funny. I'm into it. This was a good idea. This was a good idea by past me, I think. Oh, I'm absolutely into it. We can also fool around with the way the insignia is going to be situated on the bell. So it doesn't need to be like facing straight forward. Again, it's going to look a lot less deliberate. But I'm probably going to like add that to his head because it just looks really, really funny. Normally, I think I had this thought previously that just gluing random objects to giants is maybe not the way to go in terms of how you want to design them. But I think a big part of that is the size of the object, and I think this actual bell is just the perfect size to be treated as a helmet. If something is infinitely larger than a giant, I think the wooden like tree club that I made is kind of pushing it, but it works because of the pose. But we worked really hard to make that pose, you know, lead credence to the actual weapon there. Oh baby, this is the mother load. Yes, this is literally all the bits we could ever want. We got skeletons in like, look at this. This is a favorite bit of mine that I've not really used up until now. It's just like a shackled prisoner that died in like that little like torture device slash like metal cage. We got pieces of masonry on chains. That's always something we could use. We got wooden cages. We got barrels. We got the cow. We got collars. We got people in bags. Millstones. Just wonderful, wonderful things, and a lot of them. I'm curious about one thing. We got some birds as well, and a water skin. But the most important thing that I have not seen, and maybe I don't need to freak out yet. Let's not freak out yet. We have arrows. There we go. We have the most important thing, the most important guy that we'll need to build. Oh, and we got some goblins that got like smashed as well. So this is great. This is fantastic. The most important model of this entire project is right here. Hopefully you can see him if I hold him like that. That's Johann. He's a historical little model who has always ran from giants. And he looks fan-fucking-tastic. And we're gonna put him on a base, and he's gonna do all sorts of wonderful stuff. And the fact that we have so many arrows, I'm very surprised, because in the past I remember other people buying like arrow bits from me. We also have a lot of these ogre icons that we could also use. Some of these other skeletons, some shields in here as well, which I'm very, very happy to see. Some goblins. Lots and lots of stuff. Man, this is amazing. This is just what the doctor ordered. I was worried where all of these... Johann, run, you fool! Exactly, exactly. You see, Ren gets it. He's a man of culture. But yes, I'm so happy that we were able to find this. It gives me tremendous hope. Tremendous hope, because we will be able to customize our giants with all of these pieces, and it's going to be fantastic. Now, I'm not gonna mine that for any more content, because frankly, it's unbecoming of either of us. So, instead, what I'll do is, and I'll try to remember this. We already have the music on in the background, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna change the scene to the Be Right Back screen, so that you're not just looking at like this unmoving, immobile image of my table, and instead you can look at the spirit that is shaking the hourglass. And I'll put the music on a little louder, and then I will go and rummage around in my closet. So give me but a moment. I have returned. I also took the opportunity to get a bathroom break and stretch my legs a little. I also incidentally felt like a total action hero when I was getting this particular box, because it had fallen out of my much larger box, which is mounted on an amp. Well, not really mounted, but I have a big cardboard box that has a bunch of other Warhammer boxes in it that's put on top of an amp that's just been like chilling, kind of a half-defective amp from a friend of mine, into my closet. And this apparently at one point fell out of that box behind it, which I remembered after I sat down. But in order to get it, I can't really go into my closet. I mentioned before that it's supposed to be a walk-in closet, but it's a very misleading name because I can no longer walk into it. So instead what I was able to do is I was able to grab a hold of the door, basically, the side of the door, and just like lean in and like almost like try to grab someone from a bottomless chasm. Now, incidentally, we have another bell that's slightly larger and has cave-in trappings on it. So if we want to upgrade the man's bell, that's always an option. But I think this would be kind of oversized. It just wouldn't look as nice. But we'll see. If we want to go down that route, that's an option. I wanted something more human, you know? And the bit that we want is this giant... It's not really a fireball. It's supposed to be a ball of plague. But you can very easily, like, paint it as a fireball. it has like 2 halves. So we're immediately gonna rescue that from this heap of stuff and have a good time with it. We will probably need to like mess around with it quite extensively, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to work with this bit. I think during the last broadcast I mentioned that this is, in particular, a plastic piece that ever since the model has been made, I've been looking at kind of with hunger in my eyes, you know, like, I could imagine a number of uses for it, but then I never did anything with it. And now, finally, we have an excuse to grab it and do some fun stuff with it. And what better purpose for any bit than to end up in a giant conversion, you know? It's the best fate. It's frankly the best fate. We also have some wooden wagon wheels in here that actually look fairly generic, so I feel like we could easily find some use for those as well. There was also a part of me that wanted to use these particular pieces, the little like stone arches, you know, just over my hand here. I wanted to put these onto his shoulders, like maybe just strap them on there. I know they have the Skaven runes on them, so that takes away a little bit from the human theme I mentioned before, but if I really wanted to, we could scrape those off, but I think it would just look kind of cool. There's some other wooden structures in here that look fairly useful. There's a lot I think we could use from here, incidentally, so I'm very happy, again, with this purchase as well. This whole stream is just me patting, like, past me on the back for spending so much money on various garbage things for this one conversion, basically. And you'll just have to accept that. But yeah, if we mount this sideways, kind of like this, obviously this is not the final position of the arm, either of them, but you kind of see the trail of smoke from that. It adds like a ton of momentum to the model. So like if I literally just built it like this, and if I gave it a suitable hand, then I think it might be believable for what we want to do. But it's just too simplistic. It's not what we want to do. We don't just want to have him like wave around a thing with one hand. We want to put it on like a larger rope, most likely, and basically just you know, make him actually spin this thing around with like a huge amount of force. Is the hope, at any rate. But we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. He could have like a mechanical arm with just a little hook on it, but I think that's a cheap way of doing it, basically. Let's put the bell on just for a second. It looks so funny. I love it. I love it so much. Like, I'm just gonna put him... You'll have to allow me this one. You won't see anything of this because I got the giants behind me here. And I'm not gonna like move the camera and everything because it's not gonna show up too well, unfortunately, due to the distance, but... It just looks so funny. I like it. I like it a lot, actually. I wonder if we could also put the bell on the other ones. I guess we could put the bell on the crazy guy's head if we really wanted to. He might actually look even better with it, question mark. Like, it's even more ridiculous on this first guy that we built. Look at this. It doesn't like sit level, so it looks even funnier. He's actually shouting instead of just gritting his teeth. He looks like some demented boss from Bloodborne or something. Like literally the dumbest Bloodborne boss. Just a big man with like a piece of broken wood and a bell on his head, just running straight at you like a fucking idiot. Fantastic stuff. I mean, one of them is definitely gonna get that bell. I can tell you that much. It'll just the question is who is gonna get it, not whether or not someone's gonna get it. I'm curious if it would look good with Woodman as well. Allow me just one more moment to faffing about. Funnily enough, it would actually look kind of cool on him too. Like it kind of looks decent with the beard. Changes his head shape a little bit. It doesn't sit so level on his head, unfortunately, but it is what it is. Kind of an interesting idea. It's definitely making me consider things. It's making me consider a lot of things. The big problem with this particular piece, so right now there's a part of me that's thinking I would only need to get 3 more of these bells to be able to do the whole army as a concept of, oh, they all wear bells on their heads, and, you know, that's the rite of passage. They have to break down a giant house. Kind of a breaker tribe thing, if anything, but it could work. The problem is they no longer sell the Azerite Chapel on the GW store. I guess I can check the one, like, supplier that I normally get my stuff from, but they don't tend to have stuff that is no longer stocked by GW themselves. We can look at eBay briefly to see if maybe we can find some more Azerite Chapels as well. Yeah, I see one right here. Someone is selling just the bell, actually, in Canada, apparently. With like a really, really expensive shipping, but I could just get another bell if I really wanted to. And people are still actually selling... I think in Poland there's another one, so I could get like 3 easy. Costs me quite a bit, but doable, and these are just the things that I see. So that's something to consider, I suppose, in the future. If we want to make the concept, hey, what if they all wore bells on their heads? It's definitely an option, basically. I'll try to show you what Woodman would look like with it, in case you're curious. Because really the thing that made me believe, like, oh, maybe that could be a thing, is because he didn't look awful with it. I thought he would look awful, to be honest. Putting it on his head, I was like, oh, this is going to be, like, fun but bad. And then it turned out to not be bad at all, which is very surprising to me. Allow me to put his hand around the giant tree trunk once again. It fell off, actually. As we've established, we've been very lucky that most of these hands have just held on to the stuff super, super well. So this is probably going to be, like, a pretty bad dry fit, and I don't know how much you'll get to see of it, but I hope that you see a little bit. I think it shows up. I think it shows up a little bit. But yeah, so that's what he would look like with the bell on his head. It kind of works with his like mouth agape like that. Kind of interesting. Definitely an interesting idea to paint the heads and then still just put the bells on it. Well, not just the heads, but the faces more so, and then just put them in the shadow with the bells. Yeah, we'll have to consider that for sure. We do have one other bell, as we've established, for one of them, so that's something to keep in mind. We'll see. We'll see. I'm not committed to the idea just yet. Not fully, at least, but it is a thought. It could be something, and on 2 of them it looks absolutely fantastic. And it doesn't look bad on Woodman either. I really just like it on the Gatebreaker head, though. I don't know why, but it just works. Yeah, it's just kind of neat. We'll see if we end up going with that, but I like it as a concept a lot, actually. I'm sure you can tell that I like it, though. I've been talking about it for a hot minute now. It just looks funny, dude. It just looks funny. I keep putting it on the various heads, and it looks funny as hell. We'll consider it. We'll consider it. But let's do something actually productive, and start cleaning this thing. Now, we will need the hobby saw later, but for the time being, I'll disassemble it while we're still here before we deal any more damage to it. We've already kind of bent this one saw blade in every direction. So, you know, it would be best if we repaired it just slightly, but, you know, we'll just settle for not damaging it any further. How about that? Let's go with that. I feel like that's a pretty good idea. And that's what we're all about right here. So, I'm going to start with this particular piece because it's so small and so much easier to clean than this massive thing. And with the massive thing, we have some very easy decisions to make. We know for a fact we're not keeping this chain because it does not make any sense in our case. If he's going to be swinging this thing around, then as cool as that chain is, it would not be in that position. So we'll slice it somewhere around here, basically. And I mean, at the end of the rope, he might, you know, transition into a chain, but because it is a cool chain, for sure. But first, let's start with this side of it. Spiky Ball of Death. Now this is the one Gargant concept that I have that is definitely weird, because with the first one it's a broken mast for Ugornul, the Crazed, the Running Man, aka Run Man. So in his situation, it's kind of clear to see that the concept is basically he's just a Gargant that's, you know, running solo for the most part, unarmed, picks up anything as a weapon. He has like a ship's mast that he's gotten kind of attached to, likes spearing people with it because he likes running at people and it works really rather well. Likes making shish kebab out of the pipsqueaks with large monsters, likes completely eviscerating and impaling them in like a one hit. And it's a fun concept. Plus, because of the tiny bell on it, I might like put it into his lore that you know, he either went crazy from the bell that is on like the ship's mast that keeps ringing as he sprints forward, or you know, he was crazy and he likes the sound because he's crazy, because everybody else finds it annoying in the tribe. That would be a fun concept. Incidentally, that's another bell-related shenanigan that is already setting up the concept of the rest of the bell theme. So we might become the Bell Stomp. I don't know, I'm a little tempted. It would be expensive to source all those bits, but hey, the stuff that we have already was expensive, and the only reason we're not complaining is because we got it like a while ago. So we'll see. We'll think about that for sure. But yeah, for this guy, the difference is, I mean, you know, with Woodman, aka Gangstaline Man, he's got the giant tree that he's uprooted. Again, that's like a natural thing. It's a little magical, to be sure, because it's got like that one central Sylvanet spell bit in it. And I'll probably paint it with like a slight glow. So it's definitely a tree of magical origin, but at the same time, it's still kind of just like the ship's mast, like something you might run into if you're fighting Sylvanet, basically, or if you go into like a Sylvanet forest, you'll probably encounter like a magical tree at some point during your journey. And if you're a giant, you're probably gonna uproot that shit and hit them with it, because you'll think it's hilarious. Whereas the way we want to paint this thing, which will probably be straight fire, and not like a mixtape, it's the weirdest one of the bunch. Because normally, like I said, this bit is like a plague furnace, basically. I never understood how the plague furnace looks like it's burning. I think it's just supposed to be smoking, more than anything. But you can very, very easily paint it like fire, like warp fire, even on the actual model. But we're probably going to just paint it like a regular fiery thing. So it's going to be the weirdest one, because he has like an actual artificial looking weapon, you know? The other ones are mostly all natural in the gear that they use. And I've liked that as a concept so far. I'm not against the artificial weaponry either. It's just like an interesting, you know, like thing to note as a slight difference between these models. Maybe in lore we'll get to explain what the difference is. I do remember the name I gave the Gatebreaker, so the guy we're working on. The planned name for him, he doesn't have a title right now. So we got, you know, Runman, aka Ugornul the Crazed. And this guy is supposed to be Sungug, but he doesn't have a title yet. Oh my god, my Switch Lite just decided to fall down, apparently. Let's see the damage here. I mean, it lived. It lived. I'm sorry for the noise, by the way. If it scared the crap out of you, I apologize. It didn't scare the crap out of me, but it definitely surprised me. I'm guessing the last time I kind of tidied up, I probably moved the little dock there, and it's been slowly but slowly slipping down. The sawing and cutting motions most likely didn't help with that, unfortunately, but hey, sorry for the jump scare. Unintended Nintendo Switch jump scare. Back to just cleaning sprue gates off of trailing plumes of smoke and fire, I think. A little mix of the two from the looks of it. I mean, this is definitely an older kit. I know that, and it shows with the mold lines and everything else too. It's a lot tougher to clean up than the other stuff that we've been working on so far, but it's not completely awful. It's mostly okay, I would say. We've just been spoiled by the other stuff, basically, is what it comes down to. I'm hoping that maybe, just maybe, the actual glue in the arms will cure to such a point that perhaps we can still saw those arms off tonight. And we can start fooling around with it. Because I'm very, very happy that we're cleaning up all of these bits that we'll need later. And obviously there's a lot of stuff we would still need to do with the feet, for example. It's just unclear how we would need to modify them completely. But if we figured out the arms, it would be so very helpful for us. Because it would just let us figure out the rest of the pose so much quicker. And then this guy would essentially be built, and the next session after that, we could actually go into the structural green stuff, use some modeling putty, fill in the gaps that are actually like getting in the way, maybe do some skin texture on some of them, like the rest of the model, because it's not all completely flat, you know? I mentioned it before, these guys have a ton of detail on them to really facilitate like wash, contrast, and dry brush based painting, which I think is great, by the way. Like, I think all large creatures going forward, and I mean they've kind of done this already, the details should be fairly deep in all of these models, because even if you're a good painter, it's literally just going to make your job easier to paint these guys. You're not losing anything by actually having those details there, because you can always actually just ignore it. So I think hopefully they'll continue adding these kind of details to it. There's a lot of needless detail in a lot of GW kits, but in these cases I feel like all the details so far that we've seen has been good. I also do have, because of the chapel, some other skeletons that are like tied up to various things. You know, just thinking here in the meantime. Let me move these box lids because they're about to fall. Let's see if yeah, they're right here. So I'm just thinking in the meantime, we have a bunch of like skellies, such as this one. No, those would normally go on the side of the pillars and whatnot. There's also some other skeletons in the little like metal harnesses. So we could literally have a guy that just has a number of these, that just has like up to 4 skeletons tied to him somewhere around his body, and up to 3 like skeletons just you know, skeleton prisoners and like various harnesses. That could be a lot of fun. That could indeed be a lot of fun. So that is something to consider. You know, you gotta think of the theming. You gotta imagine these things. In the past, when I was considering, you know, these conversions, like coming up with the ideas, when it was not Run Man but Boat Man, the original idea was to have one coming from the sea, one coming from the forest, and one coming from the city. And this guy would be the city guy, obviously. He's got like the burning, like actual constructed, at least in some capacity, weapon. He would have the bell on his head. He would have like the most masonry on his base. Obviously the dude with the giant trees coming from the forest, and he would have kind of a foresty theme. And Boatman would just have a boat. But Boatman has been scrapped because it just doesn't work. That conversion doesn't look as good as the basic running pose of the dude with the weapon. And lore-wise, we can still come up with a ton of cool stuff, such as, you know, him being mad because of the little bell on the thing. Or maybe he was mad earlier and it's only gotten worse because of the bell, who knows. But it does mean that we gotta like reconsider the whole concept. And I mean, just in general, I still need to come up with the name of the stomp. So like a Gargant tribe, you know, a tribe of giants in Warhammer, usually it's called like something stomp, or like something stomp. Generally speaking, if you want to follow the classic Battletome naming conventions, it's usually related to where they're from. Even if they're no longer active in that area, it's basically like if you consider Gargants as something that would most likely be identified by other races, then it makes sense that essentially other, you know, especially humans, such as like cities of Sigmar, the civilized places, would try to figure out what group of Gargants this is. And if they need to be scared of them, if they are generally speaking like malevolent, if they like to prey on the weak, or if they're more like mercenary based or whatever. I'm gonna do some braver cuts now, as we mentioned, because we're not gonna use this length of chain here at all. It is a cool chain, so I'm considering how to save it. And I guess the easiest way to save it, because if I like smush it down to the ground here, we're gonna break all of these spikes on it. So instead I'm gonna liberate it like this, I think. That's already gone like that. That works. I mean, this one, there's no two ways about. We gotta slice into something, and at that point it might as well be this, I guess. Okay. And I feel like we can maybe slice here as well. Alright, so we have this thing freed now. It's gonna look like that. It's arcing, it's beautiful, it's wonderful. And it goes a little bit like that. Now, obviously, the shape of this thing kind of lets us in on how we will want to position this as well. So ideally, we want the man to be like doing a spin to win kind of thing in some way, shape, or form, because that's the path of the smoke, basically, the trailing smoke. Otherwise, we'll look very out of place, obviously. But that's okay. That's okay. So again, like we are currently building all this stuff that might and very likely will in fact inform the rest of the pose, which is incidentally why I'm very curious as to how the arms are going to be made to work, because we keep mentioning it, but that's something that isn't set in stone about this guy yet, but it is something we would like to figure out for sure. And I mean, hey, we're gonna put the hours in, figure it out. I'm really hoping that perhaps we can still do that tonight. And I don't really see why not. We still got like about an hour basically until I'm gonna go and leave. So I'm fairly positive that we should be able to find a way. But now I'm just trying to clean up the cuts that we made. Although again, once we get some PVA mixture or other gap filling solution, a lot of these are going to be made completely invisible, but it never hurts to be thorough. That's been the big concept we've been doing. It is a wonderful looking bit, by the way. It looks fantastic. Goes together pretty nicely too. Like, we'll have to do a little bit of smoothing, and there's a big gap here, but that's easy to actually fix later. I'm into it so far. So how is this head gonna be on there again? I keep forgetting. The actual gatebreaker like head profile just doesn't exist for some reason in my brain. I keep forgetting what it's actually supposed to look like. I see like a kind of easy way of doing this now, I think. Like a relatively easy way of doing it. The legs will be one of the determining factors, I think, but we can make them work. We can make them work. Okay. Should I glue this together and then actually do the smoothing? I mean, what if we don't just yet? It's gonna go together either way, but it's just not important to glue it yet. I don't see any other reason, like any reason why we'd keep it apart, but it's also currently not a priority to actually do this. So this is pretty rock solid, as is this. I think it could handle some sawing. I was checking it earlier. I don't know if it showed up on stream. It wasn't something I deliberately mentioned. I didn't like bring attention to the fact, but I was checking whether or not before we glued on these arms, it was possible to do kind of a, and I'm going to try to show it on like cam, to do like an arm position like that you see here, like arms outstretched holding something in front of you. And with the hands, probably something like this would be ideal. But there's other stuff we can do because both of them are going to be like this. So we could do something like this if the hands fit together. Actually, it would be right hand closed and left hand, would it? Yeah, it would be. It would be, because this would be holding the Shipwreck of War Club originally. So we could do a hand motion like that. Or the alternate option is to do what the Night Goblin Fanatics do and have him hold like a piece of wood that has the rope on it, like that, basically. That could also easily be a thing. Now, the latter would obviously require moving the wrist itself as well, and it might unbalance the pose a little bit, because as you move your wrist, a lot of the muscle groups obviously change position. So that might get us another cut, in addition to the shoulder cut. So if we could get away with the hands as they are right now, which we genuinely don't know if it's a possibility, that would be ideal, but we don't know yet. So I'm gonna actually dig out some of the regular gargant bits and try to see what the hands are looking like. Because I totally forgot to take into account that that's gonna be pretty important. In addition, I will mention we have yet another tiny bell on this guy. So we might literally be able to build a set of dudes that just each have a bell. Something to note, you know, the bell stomp is maybe a reality, unintentionally. I never considered that to be the central theme for this army, but it might end up being the theme, just organically. So I'm thinking the net hand is pretty easy to figure out. Incidentally, the net hand is not going to be compatible to begin with the hand that we have, I'm realizing. Because it would not be this particular hand, like, it doesn't go with this arm. So that will give us yet another headache. But we'll figure that out as we go along. It won't have the net in it, I can assure you. I don't hate the net piece, but I'm not crazy about it either. Okay, so these fingers, I'm pretty sure... I thought these would go here, but I am wrong. I just noticed that of course not. The net has another side to it, which also features the thumb. But that's even easier, so... Let's just slice that off, and we'll immediately see how, if at all, we'll be able to attach this. And I mean, if we can't, then, you know, we go back to the drawing board, and we start thinking again and again and again. We gotta figure this out. There's no two ways about it. We knew in advance that the third one would be the most difficult and most involved because of the sheer amount of reposing that we would have to do, so at this point, really, we're not surprised. Yeah, this could be glued on there, funnily enough. Like, just as it is. Probably a little bit of modeling putty will go a long way in this case. But it is absolutely a possibility to do something with the net hand. So that's really, really positive. Now, we sliced these things off, and I need to actually free up some space so that I can look at the assembly instructions. Because... Kraken Eater was the first one, I think, in here. Yeah, it is. Let's see. How the hell does your hand go together? Can you explain, sir? I just want to know about your hand. So you glue that together. I'm a little confused. Oh, so he's got, like... Oh, okay, I see it. That could be interesting as well. He's got, like, a ship's, like, steering wheel that you can put around his arm as, like, a wristband. I thought that was, like, a structurally important bit there, but thankfully not. Okay, so we need the initial part of the Shipwreck of War Club that has this really cool skull in it, by the way. Which I don't know if we'll be able to use, but it definitely looks fantastic. So it's very tempting. So we need this, we got those. There should be like a piece of the thumb here. I think this might be it. 107, isn't it? Yep, it is. It is. So how does this work? Show me, sir. How do you work? What is your deal? And how do you function? And all of those big questions in life. Alrighty. I'm just looking at the screw here to confirm that we are out of options. And I do believe we are. Yeah, because there's simply no other hands that we can use of this size. There are other hands, by the way, if we really want to be specific. I'm pretty sure we could use the Trogboss fists as well. And they might even be bigger than these hands. Looking at it, they probably are the same size, slash like a little bit bigger. So if these don't work, it's still not the end of the world, basically, is what I'm trying to say and to cope with. Well, that locks in pretty interestingly. And this goes like this, but where's the rest of your fucking hand? Oh, you need the other side of your war club as well. Why didn't you say so, buddy? Speak up, I can't hear you when you don't say nothing. Oh yeah, there's an entire hand over here. I feel like he might need that. If we want a hand, we might need all the bits of the hand. What a crazy, kooky idea, I know, but... Alrighty. Also this piece of the boat. I don't know if we'll use the boat. There's a cool dead body. We'll probably use the cool dead body, because it's a cool dead body. Bunch of other stuff here. There's another dead body in here. Kind of a fat dude with like a little bit of a plumber's cleavage going on. Whoever sculpted that had a lot of fun. Okay, so this is the hand. Where did I put your thumb? I'm scared. Did I misplace your thumb? No, it's just here. It just blends in so well. My god, that's scary. I don't trust myself with that thumb. The rest of it I might trust myself with, although this would be difficult to do. Not impossible, but difficult to clean out. We could actually do it. But the most important thing is, how the hell would this go on this arm? And I mean, it just goes on there how it would, because this is actually intended to go on here. Yeah, that's like what I expected. Click sand pretty nicely, even though we haven't cleaned it up yet. So, let's see the other net hand, however briefly. So if I start moving these together, because the fingers are separate, would it be a possibility, after we slice out the rest of the war club? Actually, it would be. Yeah, it absolutely would be. So the beauty of this hand, although it would entail a lot of work to get rid of the war club in here, and it would still require a sizable amount of green stuff on the inside to fill out the fingers that would normally be obstructed, but we can absolutely customize how open this particular hand is going to be. So if we want to have a closed position, that's completely a possibility. If we would rather have something clasping something tight, that's like the default, but we can work it into kind of any shape that we want, which is really, really good. Now, the question is, and we can very easily check this without having to get the bits out, I'll probably go fetch a Trog boss, just so we can look at the size of the hand and kind of figure out together if that's something we want to work with. Because we could also mount some stuff in the Trog boss's hand, but that wouldn't look good. Yeah, like the big problem, well, problem, quote unquote, with this is actually, it's not correct for what we would want. If we want him to have this like held in a single hand, which is not really the original idea that we had. I guess we could modify it like that, but it just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense either way. Because again, the trailing, the trailing smoke doesn't add up. Okay, so we're making progress. We're figuring things out. Give me one moment. I'll fetch like a painted model. I was referencing my Troggots anyway, so I might as well try to show one of them on screen. Let's see, who's it gonna be? Who wants to be a star? Who has the best hands? Do you have the best hands? You gotta have the best hands. Yeah, okay, could work. So, I'm just curious about the size of these hands, and I will show this guy off. I feel like I probably have showed him before. So he's a big green boy. He's the big green Trog with two of the same weapon, dual wielding, as you do. He's got like a, I don't know how well it's gonna show up on camera, but I really like this like side profile on his face. He looks so positively dumb. Look at that. He's just like, You can just like, you can hear that expression. It's an audible expression. But yeah, he's slightly modified as well with the arm position. The weapons are also custom. I mean, the back, everything, a lot of stuff about this guy is like custom built actually. So let's look at the size of these hands. They're the same size. They are the exact same size, ladies and gentlemen. Literally the same size. So the texturing is different on the Trog hands, but that's something we could easily fix ourselves if we wanted to. And they're the same size as a Mega-gargant's hand. Now that's exciting. That's exciting for a number of reasons, because that opens up so many possibilities for us in terms of hands. Now, the one downside is obviously a lot of the Troggoth hands are holding something. In fact, all of them are. So with the Dankhold Troggoth / Trogboss kit, you got like 2 hand options basically. You can have one hold a double-handed, like a 2-handed hammer kind of thing. You get to pick the head of the hammer, obviously. I turned the double-handed, like 2-handed weapon, excuse me, into 2 like 1-handed hammers, as you can see here. So that's an option that we can work with. They also have another hand that just holds like a stalagmite that was ripped off from the ceiling of a cave, but that I think can be actually shaved down into just an empty hand, essentially. Like just a closed fist. And the other hand is trying to, like, it's crushing a Gribbly. I know for a fact that that can be shaved down to a regular hand, because I got an orange colored Trog that doesn't have any of the Gribbly bits except for one leg poking out. And the reason I left that there is because I imagine he's holding like a spider, like crushing like just a tiny spider, or like saving a spider because it's his friend. Never really like full committed to the idea, but I thought it looked cool. But yeah, so if we want to, we could give the man Trog fists and just do that. Now, I guess the one thing that is worth looking at, but I think the wrists are just about the same size. Yes, I think it would be mostly interchangeable. So these kits actually have interchangeable parts in that regard, which is kind of nice, actually. So hands-wise, we kind of know what we have going on, basically. So this hand is clasped, holding something, not in the way that we would want it to. Is it possible to twist it so that it's more believable? Like, to be what we would want it to be? Kind of yes, actually. If we just had it like that, then that actually looks somewhat believable already. Nice, nice. That actually looks kind of good. And if we go the fanatic route, where they're holding like a piece of wood that is actually attached to the weapon itself, then that works pretty flawlessly, actually. Now the other hand we already know is like this, so that's kind of like his position. I guess it's more open than that, because like the club is massive, and he's only got like 3 fingers, so it's more like that, kind of like a claw grip, for what it's worth. So we know that that's like that. I mean, there's no 2 ways about it. I think we're gonna have to slice both shoulders, because, and this is gonna be, in fact, something I can't really show on stream, like the pose. So what I do when I'm thinking about poses is I strike the pose. I literally just strike the pose in real life, and I, you know, try to pay attention to like how I'm holding my limbs. I am done with half of the base colors on the Droth. Did some riffs, but it's getting late. Have fun with plastic cracks. See ya. Thank you for tuning in, Ren. It's nice to hear that you were able to make a ton of progress. I look forward to seeing the finished Magma Droth. If you like, you can like, I'm pretty sure you're gonna send some pictures about it anyway, but if you're okay with it, I'll probably show it on stream once it's done. Just like do maybe a little bit of like a community thing, like, hey, a friend of mine painted this, and it looks cool. If you don't mind, I'll probably do that once I get some pictures from you. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Get some rest, and I will speak to you later. But yeah, so normally I would just strike the pose that I'm trying to make. So right now we kind of know that we have like an arm outstretched to the side, and you probably can't see like my hand in frame, but I'm holding it in like the same way that this guy would. And we have like another undefined extended arm. So what we could do is we could put the 2 together, kind of like this. Let me like try to move so that you can kind of see it. And again, I'm trying to mostly like imagine how the hands would be held. Like we could try to do something like that. We would have to rebuild the shoulders completely. Like, a lot of work, obviously, would go into that, but we knew that from the get-go. The bigger question would be if we do that. So if he just has those out in front of him, let's now actually consider how this particular thing would show up in the grand scheme of things. So if we're gonna put this ball of flame on a rope in front of him, does the trail of smoke work the way that we want it to? And incidentally, I think it would. I actually think it would. So now I'm realizing I probably should have glued this together because it keeps falling apart. Harder to dry fit because it's all spiky, but that's on me. So yeah, with even the shortest amount, I'll just leave the side of it here because it keeps falling apart. Silly me for not gluing this, actually. But no, that looks, yeah, that actually makes sense. Okay, so if that would go there, and the trail is at that point good, let's put his head on. That would work as well. We might have figured it out. We might have literally figured it out. Okay, so now comes the exciting part. Some of the most extensive cutting that we've had to do so far. I'm gonna move some of this stuff to the side, and before we get into it, I'm gonna learn from my mistake, because already with very few moving parts, we're encountering difficulty dry fitting this. So what I'm about to do is I'll actually do what I guess I was supposed to do probably an hour ago, and glue the actual fireball into one piece, so that it's going to be a lot easier to dry fit it in the future. And maybe we can do a little bit of gap filling with some plastic glue already. I really should have done this earlier, to be honest with you. I was lazy, and I genuinely thought, like, oh, it's not going to be that hard to dry fit. Might as well leave it separate. Doesn't make any difference. But I was wrong. I'll own up to my mistake. It was a bad idea. It's a bad idea to not glue it, but we will fix it now. So let us do that. Let us immediately do that. And we can let it cure while we get the hobby saw out. I'm immediately going to glue this and push it together. And since we have the glue flowing right now, I would like to fill in this gap. It's also going to make this a little bit more stable. But mostly I'm looking for it to, make this giant gap disappear. Like already. Although we're going to do a lot more work on it later with some kind of gap filling medium. Okay. Now we can just set that aside to cure. We got a lot of pieces, by the way, that are just curing in some capacity. So now we're going to cut the fucking arms off. Fun times ahead. I'm looking for that one particular saw blade shape that we have. Yep, this one is good. This is what we want. Nice conservative little cuts, and perhaps another C word in there as well in the form of composite. So we're not looking to just make a straight cut down the length of one of the arms, currently at least. We're not trying to just dismember, we're trying to dislocate, if that makes any sense. Allow me to hydrate, by the way. Alrighty. So, the big difference that we're doing now compared to some of the other stuff that we were working on is we are looking to take off the entire fucking arm, shoulders and all, which might actually be easier than some of the other stuff we were doing. Rebuilding it is going to be harder, but hey, that's neither here nor there. Which one is going to be easier to do? I feel like this arm is more in the way of everything, to be honest with you. So with that in mind, let's get started. I'm gonna just lead him down over here. This is kind of the bottom of the shoulder joint. So we're just gonna very happily, merrily saw into his flesh right here. And just, this funnily enough is not so much of a composite cut. This is so far a straight slice above the pectoral muscles. But, I mean, hey, it lines up. Turns out, the man has pretty nice looking shoulders, and it all just kind of lines up properly for us. Which is ideal. And we're looking to move this arm closer to the, forward part of his body, basically. It's too far back for our taste right now. We've already gone through, so that was fairly easy. And now we gotta figure out how big the rest of his shoulder muscle is over here. And whether or not we want to do one straight cut, but I don't think we want to do a straight cut. I think what we want to do is, structurally, this is what we're gonna do. And funnily enough, I think this is basically where his shoulder is. So what I'm about to do here is there's a little piece here that's already kind of almost denoted here for our use. And I'm going to slice into it and make an incision, basically. So this is now a composite cut, as I mentioned, because it's no longer just, two straight cuts, basically. There's going to be a couple vectors in here, a couple different directions each of these is going in, and that's ideal. It makes it a lot more believable, because it's actually going to be like an entire shoulder joint that's going to be repositioned. Gonna entail a lot of rebuilding, so look forward to that, I guess. Is this already hollow? We have hit the hollow part of it. I still want to cut a little bit more though, because I don't think it's going to connect otherwise. I don't think we've cut enough. Now, needless to say, we're going to have to, with these cuts, we have now cut into a lot of the back detail as well, such as the various rags and stuff that he's wearing. So that's something we're going to have to fix later. But it's not that difficult to fix that, is at least the copium that I'm huffing. I think we can still go a little further. In fact, we might need to as well, because otherwise it won't link up. We want the whole entire shoulder. Leave no shoulder behind, as they say. Okay, that's looking pretty good now. Yeah, that will link up. That will actually link up. So I'm hoping that just 3 cuts is going to be enough to do this. And I don't see why it wouldn't be, to be honest. Now, I probably should cut it more like this, because I think we're compromising the structural integrity right now. Although it hasn't started wobbling yet, but you never know. Yep, something's still holding it. I think in the armpit. So the initial cut didn't go fully through, but that's not bad right now, because now we can doctor it a little further. Nice, nice. We got the whole shoulder. Look at this, look at this. His whole entire shoulder is off. He's got no arm on that side. And we can now rebuild it in any way we please. So it was like this, now it's off. We can put it anywhere we like. We will have to rebuild part of the clavicles and whatnot there, obviously, because if we just like plop it on like that, it doesn't make sense. It wouldn't look like that, obviously. Now, there's a couple, like things to note here, that past a certain point, obviously, you're also risking his neck going on there, but thankfully his neck has 2 other pretty massive attachment points, so even after we slice these off, we're most likely going to be fine, I feel like. But yes, you could be particularly worried about this, especially if you're starting off trying to not fuck up expensive models. I can see why you might think twice about doing this. I don't care. It's like either we figure it out or we don't, but we're gonna have to figure it out, especially now. We're kind of locked in, We've sliced this man apart. He's missing bits and pieces of himself, and that's what we were, gunning for, so it's okay. And, without further ado, I think we are literally about to slice off his other arm as well. I don't see why we wouldn't. At this stage of the game, why would we not do that? I'm once again going to start with the most obvious cut here, which you could make the argument, by the way, that this should be 2 cuts. And, I mean, this would be the straight cut. We could, curve it a little bit like that. I'm honestly not too worried about wasting material by making a straight cut and keeping it easier, because we can, essentially, we would need to add a little bit of roundedness to it later on. But we can add that roundedness later, is the beauty of it. We don't have to worry about it just yet. And we lose a little bit of material doing it this way, but the amount of mental, goodness that we save, we have significantly fewer headaches, basically, is the big bonus, essentially, of doing it this way. Let's see. Oh, that's nearly through already. Nice. Yeah, so I think we're cutting through the armpit here pretty nicely. Indeed we have. Now we're just cutting upwards. This is the part where we'll have to do a little bit of clever filing to return some of that muscle shape back. But again, I think I'm okay with that in the grand scheme of things. I hope we haven't completely compromised structural integrity. We thankfully haven't. Half of this thing holding on is still plenty, apparently, for this to work. So this is gonna be the interesting part. I think here, this is a very small incision along this point. And then just another straight cut. So the shoulders are actually just 3 cut each, from what it looks like. Just 3 incisions, and then you can safely remove them. Again, we're obviously, you know, cutting into other fine cloth materials here, but it's neither here nor there. Those are all things that we should be able to fix in the grand scheme of things. I'm bending and breaking some other parts of him, but, well, mostly bending right now. So I'm going to try to do this, like, just holding him in the air. Never ideal, by the way, to do that, but thankfully the plastic material is not hard enough to necessitate having to push him down onto the table. We'd have to be that forceful. That's again the beauty of plastic. Like, in addition to being a light material, it has a lot of good qualities that allow at least sculptors as well to make some crazy kooky models that you keep seeing from GW with time now. And I mean, I don't blame them, it looks cool. But it also allows you to just do this kind of stuff, so I'm just gonna make this cut, and I'm hoping that this will link up. And I don't see why it wouldn't, to be honest. It's a pretty big, in terms of length, it's a pretty sizable cut. But it just means we have to be a little patient while making it happen. And not slice into our own fingers would be pretty great, actually. Alright, so that's hitting the void now. And this will link up in a second, I think. I think we have indeed hit it. Yep, we're getting some wobbly action, which is ideal, because obviously we're looking to separate this arm. So go back in more directly. I feel like this is completely off. Oh, there's like a tiny, tiny piece here holding it. Okay, so this is gone. Nice. The man has no arms now. Yay! Never thought I'd be happy about something like that, but apparently we're very happy about that. And now we're just gonna have to figure out how we're going to actually go about rebuilding his actual arms here. But basically we're just gonna place this in front of him. Now the dry fitting of this is gonna be difficult in a way that you'll also see. So I immediately apologize, but let's just put his head on for a moment. This is, by the way, the other reason why I didn't want to glue his head on, because like we would just have to be slicing into it in all sorts of places. It just makes more sense to add it back after. I mean, funnily enough, I'm looking at this right now. I wonder if we can maybe get away with the stock, like, leg position on this guy if we rebuild the arms. It might literally be the case that the basic leg position works for this, which would be incredible, by the way, if that were the case. The hands are going to be the exciting part here. So this is going to be still kind of a nightmare, not just because of the fact that we'll have to rebuild so much of the actual structure of the shoulders, but more so like the size of the hands is going to determine the pose. The position of the hands is going to determine the pose. So there's a lot to consider here. We know for a fact, I think right now, that we don't really need to do any more sewing currently. So I'm going to put away my hobby saw once again, because I think we're safe to do that just now. And it's time to clean up the slices, and I will hydrate if you'll give me but one moment, and also collect my thoughts. But yeah, so just moving the arms around seems like we can get away with quite a lot, basically. And that's good. That's really, really good and very, very promising for us right now. So I'm very much hoping that it'll work nicely. I wonder how well that's gonna work for us. I mean, at the end of the day, the most challenging part of this is definitely the shoulders. And we've done some of the most terrifying parts of working with those, which was, you know, the cutting. And funnily enough, we picked the right hands for this. Like, these hands just work. Well, these arms, rather. The hands remain the question, but I'm positive that we'll be able to make them work. And my man is going to look fantastic, doing like a spin-to-win style position. It's going to look great, actually. I'm looking forward to it greatly. Now, we'll see if we'll keep the chains at all, or if we'll just straight up drill and use like a brass rod. Obviously not one of this size, like, needless to say, it's not going to be this long, but brass rod instead of the rope would make a lot more sense. We could still bend this slightly to give it that, like, idea of momentum, and we probably would at that point as well. That's his little head. We could put the actual, like, bell on top of that. Yeah, man, this guy's gonna look crazy cool, actually. Gonna require a lot of rebuilding. And the nasty part is, instead of just looking at this, let's make ourselves useful, start cleaning up the cuts. Shouldn't take that long to clean all of that up. But the other thing to keep in mind is we'll have to figure out the hands situation. Now, I don't know if I'll still get into the hands right now, to be honest. We'll see how long it takes for us to really, like, clean up these nasty cuts on his shoulders and on his body. And we'll figure it out from there, basically. Because that's going to be something that requires a little bit of getting into, basically. Like, figuring out the position of the hands, figuring out how they're going to be compatible, deciding how he's going to be holding on to the actual weapon that he has, building the weapon, that's going to be a couple hours. And it's all kind of a very motion-based thing. You know, once you get the momentum for one of those things, I feel like you're going to be stuck doing it for a while. So we'll clean up this thing, and we might call it after, to be real with you, because this is a pretty good position to be in right now. We've made, once again, a ton of progress. I genuinely thought we'd make a lot less than we did, and we've located all of the bits that I was after, funnily enough. I was not really scared that we wouldn't find our regular man-crusher-gargant bits, but we did. We did find all of it, and that makes me very happy, because we're going to be able to accessorize our guys. We're going to be able to equip some drip, essentially, is what I'm saying. What I'm saying. Alrighty, let me just check on one thing, though. I got, like, a notification here earlier. I'm curious what that is all about. Nothing particularly important from the looks of it, but you never know. Yeah, no, this is just random Discord shenanigans, which I appreciate. I very, very much appreciate, but like, come on now. Alright. Let's continue being productive for the time being. However little we can focus on that, but let's try. Nice. Okie dokie. I mean, we can leave these rags that are on the shoulders on the back intact for the time being. They'll probably be covered with other rags, to be completely real. I don't see why we wouldn't cover them, like, later. Let's actually hit the body. Dude, these composite cuts look so good once it's just negative space. Pan myself on the back here, but we got good shoulder shapes out of them. And that's what we were after. In this case, that was the goal. His pecs are mostly looking intact as well, which is a big W for the squad. I mean, we'll get the file out after this too, for sure. A little bit of a gluey bit in the center here. Yeah, I'm feeling good about this project. I'm not gonna lie. I am consistently surprised how quickly we're able to progress. But I think that's a good kind of surprise, you know? Like, it makes me feel really, really great that we're able to consistently overperform compared to my expectations. And I mean, we have relatively high expectations. We're slicing apart expensive models here, but so far, we've done the Lord's work. We've been doing great stuff, actually. We've been making it happen. And I'm very, very happy to see it. Now, I don't know if I can show you the dry fit, because we're essentially done with the cleaning parts of this for the time being. I'll try to at least show you the arm position that I have in mind. And it's going to be terrifying because it's all currently just in the void. It's all just held in the air, basically. So that's kind of what we're after. This is why we wanted to slice these shoulders off. But as you notice, we'll have to build an entire shoulder superstructure, basically. There's not really another way of going about it. That other shoulder is completely out of whack, by the way. It should be lower, needless to say. But as you can imagine, this is a very, very, very difficult thing to do, to try to show you this. But yeah, that's kind of what we're gunning for. Now, that might actually require structural green stuff already. So we will have to see. But right now we got two rather good-looking arms with the shoulders intact. We got some hand options. We got his head, which can still be perched on top here with no issue. We got a belt that he can wear as a helmet, which maybe all of them will wear or something like that. I haven't decided yet. He's got the business end of his weapon pretty much ready to go. And he's got his feet ready to go. The only reason they're not glued on is because we want to see the final position of the other stuff first. So we've done amazing work, actually. We've done very, very fantastic work, and I'm feeling really rather good about that. I'm not about to lie to you. I'm feeling real good right now about that. So, like I said, the big thing that I'm a little scared of is jumping into other steps right now. It sounds like such a cop-out, you know? But at the same time, I genuinely am a little worried about going into trying to figure out the hands and whatnot, even just the cleaning parts of it, because at least with the Shipwreck of War Club hand, we would have to really consider how we're gonna, slice these parts off, which piece is staying, which piece is actually going. So I'm not gonna bother with that, to be honest with you. In fact, I'm not going to. I feel like I'm gonna stop on a high note, and with that in mind, I am probably just gonna take us on over to the end screen, but I would like to thank you for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed yourself, perhaps as much as I did, and I mean, I enjoyed myself greatly, and we made a ton of progress. I have no idea when I'll be streaming next time this week, unfortunately. I wish I did, but it's all up in the air. This year has not been pleasant from that perspective. But we're gonna try to come back at some point, maybe even with a vengeance, and I'll let you know. But once again, thank you for tuning in. I hope you had a good time, and I will see you soon, I hope.
Here is the safest place to be, in the modern home on wheels. Under you is a rigid steel foundation. Steering controls anchored to the frame. Dependable brakes to stop you safely in every emergency. Knee action to keep you steady over the bumps and set you down easy in case of a blowout. So we have just an ordinary day, ordinary traffic, yet any number of these drivers are potential killers. Here's one of them. He doesn't look like a killer, does he? That is why ordinary tires are not enough. numbers are not enough. Let's get out of here before somebody gets hurt.